as MBBS students, we do not study nutrition. To have a company talk to me or to have a range of products for me, I either need to be sick or I need to be a bodybuilder.
People don't even stop their thumb for 2 seconds on an Instagram photo.
The extraction of protein science has been dominated by European and American countries.
The biggest learning of marketing is consumers cannot tell you why they do what they do.
There are two things which are a problem in this industry. One is that you go to Google, search for facts about your nutrition, and most of it is SEO driven.
I felt that I don't get any attention from the opposite sex because
Hi, welcome back to another new episode of the Metabolic Health podcast. This is in continuation to the series of Building for Health, where we talk to innovators, entrepreneurs, startup founders who are building solutions to make India healthier alternatives to eat right, sleep well, and move more. In continuation to that conversation, I've not one but three innovators and founders who are building in themselves very unique brands and products, which I'm sure some of you might have tried. If not, you should try. But we'll get into and know more about how they're building, why they're building, their experience, how did they start, what does future lie for them, and more importantly, what does it take to build a healthy eating or a healthy supplement company in India. So if you're an entrepreneur, possibly aiming to become one, if you're an investor willing to invest in one, or if just a consumer who wants to know the story behind these brands, you hopefully would enjoy this conversation. Three founders. I have Pranav from Trunativ, I have Samit from Neulife, and I am Shashank from The Whole Truth. So I'll let each one of them introduce. Let's get into the podcast. Great, gentlemen. Thank you. That's a Twitter bio introduction. You have to do your own bit to tell the world more about you guys. So I'll let you guys introduce yourself. Each of you probably start with something what you usually don't introduce yourself with. And maybe then the vanilla introduction about who you are, what your company is. We start with Pranav.
Thank you for having me here, Dilip. I think since it has to be a different kind of an introduction, I would say this is a young boy trying to fight the large nutraceutical world and create a space for myself and my brand, which is called Trunativ. The whole ethos of the brand is towards simplifying nutrition for Indian families. What we've realized in the past few years that the model of preventive healthcare is growing at a rapid pace. And as a brand, we are closely listening to the demands of what a consumer or a average household requires to really lead out the quality in terms of his health and his lifestyle. Thus, Trunativ is a brand which is typically focusing on simplifying nutrition using proteins, fibers, sugar replacers, now collagen, of course. So I would say it's more of a preventive healthcare brand which we are building out, and happy to be discussing my experience with you today.
Great. I want to tell you, I don't know if you made yourself look good or made others look good by saying you're the youngest. So now everyone has to figure out who's the eldest in the room.
I'll do all this.
Right. Samit, over to you.
Well, I'll just give you the classic introduction. So, I'm Samit. I'm the founder of Neulife. Neulife is a full stack performance nutrition company helping people perform better every day through a positive shift in their nutrition. We basically develop science-backed nutrition solutions to improve metabolic, cognitive, and muscular health. And I have a long experience in this industry, multiple pivots during the time. So as we go along, I'll tell you a little more about my journey.
Awesome. Storyteller, Shashank.
an intro which I don't usually tell people is I'm a failed comedian. Before I started up, I used to work at Unilever for the longest time, and I used to keep cooking up reasons to leave the job and do something else. And one of the earliest things was I will open a cafe. But then I remembered that I've worked at Fassos and I know how tough it is to run restaurants. So I was like, no, maybe I won't do that. Then I said, maybe I'll become a comedian because some people sometimes laugh at my jokes. And the wife shut that down. Then finally we were like, okay, maybe I'll just start up. So that's a not so usual part of the intro. I'm the founder of a brand called The Whole Truth. Uh, we're building India's first and only 100% clean label food brand. What that means is we declare each and every ingredient that goes into a packet of food on the front of pack. So you never have to turn the packet around to find out what's going on inside your body. Uh, we define our mission as rebuilding the world's trust in its food. We believe that trust has been broken. We believe it's been broken by big food, which has been selling us half truths for ages. And if half truths like, you know, no added sugar means nothing, low fat actually means high sugar, protein packed means nothing because they'll put 1 gram of protein and call it protein packed. So they've been selling us half truths for over half a century. And if half truths are the problem, we believe a brand that says the whole truth uh, is the solution. And that's what we're trying to build. And hence, we are uh, a very mission oriented and multi category brand. We started with making protein bars. Today, we even make chocolates. In the future, we'll make everything that you eat. The mission is to take every food category in your pantry and give you a 100% clean option for it. So yeah, that's the brand.
Perfect. So excited, guys. I think there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to uncover. So the first segment, let's try to understand. Already touched upon what you're doing. Let's try to roll back to understand why you're doing that, right? And I want to set the precedence to say that I, for that matter, for the longest time of my growing up, was not healthy. The definition of being healthy was also unknown to me. It was mostly optics and metrics around how you look, how much of packs you've got, and how bulging are your biceps. And to the time when I realized that, okay, there has to be an intrinsic value to who you are, and you got to define your own parameter of what healthy is. And then I suddenly realized, which is for the past 4 6 years, that there is a growing adoption and there is a growing interest in people in compared to the past few decades we have got about knowing what healthy means and what nutritional means, right? So I feel a good way to segue to also understand why you're doing what you're doing. We'll start with Pranav. You set the bar up there saying that you were the youngest, and therefore I'm just curious, why did it pick interest of a young guy to get into this space where it's mostly driven by legacy brands, where a lot of playbooks have been defined in terms of what is what. So, what made you do this, and why you're doing this?
Definitely, to set the context, in the past 8 years of my professional journey, I have built out one of the largest import houses of proteins and bioactives in India. We have acted as key supply chain partners to almost all the FMCG companies in this domain, and
What is that company?
so I would say everything from a Unilever to now a Whole Truth as well. We are privileged enough to work with the Whole Truth as well now. So having that backend experience, one fine day.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I want you to double click. So when you say backend, what does it backend mean?
So the backend means as to how the protein or any bioactive is manufactured at the end unit
Okay.
from where it's procured. It could be a third party country, or it could be, for instance, we import our products from Ireland, from France, from Germany. Most of these bioactives and protein components are not manufactured in India. It is a heavily import dependent economy, and the past few years under the Make in India program, we have substantially, I would say, captured a large market share in that said domain, being one of the first few companies who started the entire business of importing and supplying proteins to the entire ecosystem. Having built that, for the past few years, we reached a point wherein it was driving on autopilot. We reached a certain scale after a lot of work and thought put into it, and I wanted to somewhere rewrite what the consumer angle of this looks like. If I may, explain what really triggered me is my dad went through a horrible time in COVID, and during his recovery, the doctor suggested that I may use one of the protein supplements which are doctor prescribed. Of course, I wouldn't take names here now. So
You could ask well. I don't mind, but yeah,
I would. I'm sure that it is gonna really push up
the views.
the
If it's
views for
controversial,
sure.
okay, we'll write it somewhere. Yeah.
So it was one of the famous brands, and doctor prescribed. You find it on the medical, and I being in this field, I mean, I asked the doctor if I could just give him my protein, and he's like, no, this is the product you need to give him. And I went, and I mean, as a genuinely concerned son, I did that. He was in the ICU, and I took this box to him, and he's like, "Dad, you need to have this. Doctor's given it to you." And just out of curiosity, I just turned out to the label, and I felt that this is everything but protein. And when I circled back to the doctor, his response was very cliche and clean, that as MBBS students, we do not study nutrition. That was a very eureka moment for me, that the entire economy is dependent on something. See, whenever you're having a supplementation, you're looking for it to add value to your life in some or the other way, right? And in this, I could only find malto and sugar and milk, and there was, I would say, 8% protein in the product, to be precise. And that is being marketed as a protein supplement, which is
And-
apparently going to help my dad build out better after
And
his COVID recovery.
So when you say it's actually 8%, what do you think typically a brand would be claiming how much of protein would be there?
So, the truth of the consumer marketing industry is such that the claims are all over the pack. Like Shashank mentioned, even 1 gram of protein would make them claim it as power packed and protein rich. And the naive consumers, I would not blame them. They are not used to the dissection of what the back of the pack should be having. So, having seen this kind of approach in the market, I felt that preventive healthcare as a model in India should certainly grow. Back to the drawing board, it made me feel like there are two polarizations in the market. One is a doctor prescribed supplement, and one is for the gym goers and for the bodybuilding community. So that made me realize that I to have a company talk to me, or to have a range of products for me, I either need to be sick or I need to be a bodybuilder. While I am none of these guys, right? So we were building for that market. That is where I reiterate that we are trying to simplify nutrition for households. So that has been the pivotal point where we decided to leverage our back-end supply chain, the experience that we built over the past few years, utilize it to good use, provide good quality natural products, wherein a person is able to navigate through the nuances of how he could get healthier step by step.
You made a point that most of what you were doing is you're importing, right? Can you double click like why India is not?
So there are a
its
few
own?
technical challenges we've seen in the country. The extraction of protein science has been dominated by European and American countries in the past, while some companies in India have been putting their shot. Uh, Whey protein, if you technically talk about the largest commodity in the sector, it's whey protein. It is a byproduct of cheese manufacturing. So there's something called a waste stream. A waste stream is the stream that you create when you're manufacturing cheese as a byproduct. That way is somewhere hydrolyzed, and it is concentrated to create your 80% proteins, 90% proteins, etc. Your isolates, your concentrates. That signifies that you need to have a large sum of cheese being produced in that particular geography to have the waste stream. You cannot possibly make the waste stream alone without having cheese as the primary product. So the consumption of cheese primarily in Europe and America is far, far, far superior than what it is in India, and that leading to the entire effect of having them capitalize on that market of whey proteins. Typically, apart from that, I think India has made great progress. We also, manufacture some of our raw materials. I would say small portion of it in India, but there have been some inconsistencies in terms of the milk quality and milk supply that we've been seeing. If we go on a broader scale, India is a dairy manufacturing country, but it's a marginalized dairy manufacturing country. It is not a consolidated manufacturing, wherein you have a farm which is having 5 to 10 cows, right? That is a marginalized dairy. So that entire ecosystem has not been able to stitch up the, I would say, dependency on protein, which is primarily imports right now. Going ahead, as we progress as a nation, I definitely think that opportunities lie in this sector. In fact, we as a company are also proposing a JV with one of the largest manufacturers in the world to set up a plant in Himachal Pradesh. So hopefully we should be, cracking that soon. But as of now, it's import dependent, and we've been one of the front runners in that category.
So Samit, you've got a unique background. You've built out a P&L and a business for another brand. You launched a brand in India, and now you're doing it for yourself in a way that you're building. So, from both the lens, do you think the why, what you're doing now, and the why you were doing earlier, do they vary? Are they same? And how different or how pungent is your current why?
So the why is pretty much the same. I'm an accidental entrepreneur because when I started my journey, so I've always been a fitness enthusiast since I was 13, 14 years old. Those are the mid 80s when I saw, Rambo and Rocky and Commando. Those movies kind of just blew me over.
Pranav was still not born.
He was not yet
Just
born. I
to
don't know about him.
make him feel good.
I don't think you were
Just
born
about.
either.
Yeah.
And so I have always been a fitness enthusiast all my life. I have no transformation story. Started working out when I was 14, 15 years old. So my why is primarily me. I started this business because I wanted to get my own stock of products at the cheapest possible price. I'm talking of the year 2000. In the year 2000, probably the first jar of whey protein in the country was sold by me. And those are the origins. There was no category. There was no supplementation category. Started it just to take care of my own quota of products. I've always been a fitness enthusiast. And yes, after my production engineering is when I kind of did this just for work experience and took up the master franchisee and distribution rights for a brand called Optimisation Nutrition, which is the world's largest brand based in the US. Got them down to India, designed their go-to-market strategy, and scaled it up to a 200 crore brand by the year 2012. Parallelly, in 2008, wanted to get closer to the consumer and set up, forward integrated into offline retail and set up the first Neulife store in Bombay. Scaled that up to about 65 stores by 2014 to about 55-60 crore P&L. And in 2015, we exited from the distribution, third-party brand distribution contract with Glanbia and set up my own R&D center to develop products. So the motivation was always to develop best-in-class products to plug human performance gaps. Throughout this 15 years of building the category within the country, largely the whole category, we built it on the back of education and roadshows. Lots of roadshows, lots of education, lots of seminars. And we are closely affiliated to the institution which actually certifies a lot of fitness professionals in the country. It's called K11. And the founder of K11, Kaizad Kapadia, was co-founder. He was co-director with me in Neulife. And he drove a lot of our educational initiatives. So those are the roots of the brand. It's been all around education, R&D, human performance gaps. So I'm a student of human performance, and that's what I practice even to today. And that's why when I set up the R&D, the whole goal was to solve for metabolic health and to optimize for peak performance. Okay, so we are a peak performance brand, a full stack peak performance brand. And when I say full stack peak performance, meaning we develop nutrition solutions to improve metabolic, cognitive, and muscular health. So when I talk about muscular health, I'm talking about active nutrition, sports nutrition. When I talk about metabolic health, we are talking about fatty acid metabolism and other body processes, how I can kind of lower my insulin levels and kind of use certain metabolic strategies to improve health. And cognitive health is obviously brain health. So we are already developing products in that line of stream of products.
So the product, sorry, I'm just trying to double click while you're at it. So the products, you said performance, metabolic, and cognitive.
Right.
Is the customer persona unique and separate for each, or their overlap for
It's
an
the
average
same.
Joe?
It's the same. So the key insight for us is that people want to perform better at work and in personal life. Okay, and performance is through three dimensions. It's cognitive, metabolic, and physical. Right? You want to play with your kids. You want to play a sport. You want to look better body compositionally. You want your brain to fire better at work. Right? So it's the same audience. Our ICPs are the same for this. It's just multi-use case. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to come to you and sell you all my products. It depends on what your priorities are, your budgets are, and so on. But our job is to present a portfolio which is full stack, multi-use case, and we will educate the customer, and the customer will essentially choose what he wants to pick from. So this is really what my whys are. To this date, I have my own guinea pig. So, for example, we have a metabolically optimized protein shake, which goes by the name Keto Whey. The name is Keto Whey, but it's not actually for keto diets.
Keto diets, yeah.
It's basically a metabolically optimized protein product, because what we've done is we've created a fatty protein shake which is 100% carb free, powered by whey isolates, but supported by MCTs, which is our key metabolic ingredient.
And what is MCT?
MCT is a type of fat. It's a type of good fat. The full form being medium chain triglycerides. which refers to the carbon chain length of the fatty acid molecule. And that's a product we've developed in-house. We have a US patent on that product. We filed and we got a US patent on it. And what it essentially does is it produces ketones in the liver the minute it's ingested. And this has a protein sparing effect.
Okay.
So the protein gets to work on what it is supposed to do, which is tissue building, whereas the MCTs get to work for providing fuel for the brain and body.
So it's fair to say that an average or a typical protein powder which is out in the market would have the protein component, but you are trying to layer the keto component on top of it.
Not the keto component, just the fatty protein component.
Okay.
So we believe that fatty protein is better than standalone protein because that is how our genome, the human genome, evolved over 2 million years of evolution. As a hunter-gatherer, what we essentially ate was always fatty protein. And it's only with the advent of agriculture in the past 10,000 odd years that carbohydrates and sugars got into our systems. And more so in the last 200 years when sugars got very majorly into our systems. And that essentially for us is the beginning point of lifestyle disease. That's really the unclean portion of food. You know, it's the sugars and the carbohydrates which have a certain glycemic load, which are the bad portion of food. And that's what I think we need to solve for.
Right. So I just want to double click on your journey. So since you've been on both sides of the table, bringing a brand or a name and building a brand out of it, and now you're building a brand bottoms up, right? Is it fair to ask there is an advantage in either of the route if someone has to build a business? I mean, is there an carrying advantage if you have to piggyback on a brand and kind of build it instead of building a brand from scratch? In your, because you've done both, and I'll get to Shashank, he has a different approach, but in your purview, is there any advantage?
I don't think there's any advantage, really speaking, apart from the fact that if you're a non-category person, getting on the back of a certain brand will just get you, the GTM will be easier because you'll already have, everything around the brand already taken care of. But the margins would be much lower in that case. And you wouldn't actually end up really having a good share of the value chain. So I think building something from the ground up will be a better option.
So you mean to say in terms of optics of building a business, the anchors of piggybanking on existing brand and layering on top of it rather than building a bottoms up brand, it's more favorable if you're doing the latter?
I think it depends on the life cycle of the business, or rather the life cycle of the category, so to speak. So if it's a mature category, then it's better if you build from the ground up. If it's a new category, you can always experiment with overseas brands or third-party brands to get there quicker, do a few experiments before you burn your own cash. Because if you try to do something from the ground up, it costs a lot more. You got to get into R&D, you got to get into manufacturing. So all of that can be avoided if you have a quick go-to-market with third-party brands. And again, that in turn would depend on the life stage of the category.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before I go to Shashank, so what was your reason you chose On? I mean, I'm sure at that point of time there would be probably a dozen of other brands, right? So what was the reason to choose On?
Not really. I mean, in those days, I used to use On myself.
Oh, okay.
And like I told you, I've always been an advocate of either building or selling products which I would use myself.
Okay.
And it was a fairly large brand at that point of time. And it just accidentally happened that we ended up choosing On.
In
Sure.
fact, I've had the good fortune of knowing Samit sir for a few years now. And I would definitely say without two thoughts that he's the founding father of the entire industry. There is primarily for what reason? That we are all building on a base that he created back when protein wasn't cool enough.
Okay.
I've in fact told this to him as well that he was one of the, in fact I was a 14-year-old or 15-year-old when I bought my first protein from a Neulife store, right? So that is the era he has played in, and that is why I call him the founding father, because
So you just
before
made
the
me look a lot
buildings-
older.
Yeah, so I was about to say
That's
he's
his constant.
he's just constantly having his strikes because he said
Yeah.
that sir, and then he said
Yeah.
he's the father,
Father.
and he also made sure that he said
I
the
meant-
age,
I
right?
meant-
So
I meant by
he's clearly
hierarchy and
defined who's the
respect.
youngest and who's the most eldest.
No, I'm sure he's looking fitter than me right now. I mean, that's for sure. But he has really given the country as a whole a platform, which all brands are using to build up now. Because whenever you are constructing something, there has to be piling and a base level setup, right? Which he has done a lot of effort into.
Yeah.
And I would say the entire ecosystem is ground up built on this.
Yeah.
So big kudos to your entire initial journey. I mean, this has really created a large ecosystem for the entire country as a whole. I feel.
Yeah. No, great. So your father. So we have to say thank you to you, right? So Shashank, from education, Samit spoke about a lot of education which he did, and I, for the time I've seen you and known about the work what you do, I realized that the why part for you is questioning the why what others have created. So from a category point of view, there were people who are doing something, and somehow your why uh, came out of that. Is that right, wrong? Where exactly your why fits now?
Actually, the why comes from my own personal journey. Used to be a super obese kid. Used to be 100 and, like, I remember being 110 kgs when I was 19 years old. And basically, I just remember childhood as a fat kid. Like, that's my memory of childhood, right? And like, it's a joke, but it's true that I was in a boys' school, so there was no need to not be fat. Like, for whom? But the minute I went to college, and women happened, and women didn't happen.
That's also
uh,
reality.
yeah, I think, like, hand on heart, I don't think I met any fat turned fit story. 9 out of 10 cases, there's the opposite sex involved, and that was at least true for me. Uh, I felt that I don't get any attention from the opposite sex because of the way I look. So I decided to lose weight, and I did. Like, I lost like 40 kgs in 9 months, and just went batshit crazy. Didn't educate myself at all about it. My brother, my elder brother, by the way, also, we had a family history of this. So he also used to be extremely obese, and he'd gone through a transformation journey 3-4 years before this. So, and he'd done it through running. So I was like, okay, this is how it works. He had pretty much like stopped eating and started running, and he told me about calorie deficit. So, engineer, left brain, understood the formula. I was like, okay, let's pull the formula from both ends. Stop eating, start running. Weight loss will happen. It happened. Then within 3 years, all of it came back. Then I lost 30 kgs again. Then within 3 years, all of it came back. Then I lost 25, 30 kgs again. So did this cycle 3 times. Uh, and now there is some amount of research to prove that whatever is your body composition and weight around the 18-20 years of mark, when the body stops growing and stops changing, is what your thermostat gets set at, right? So we all have these friends कि वो कुछ भी खाता है, doesn't get fat, और मैं कुछ नहीं खाता हूँ, still I keep getting fat. It's which is my experience of life, right? Like, if I'm not vigilant for a week, you will see it on my body, right? So I went through this thrice before it got into my thick head that, listen, something, you can't keep beating this with willpower and with treating this as a uh, you know as an event, as an interjection, that I will do this for 3 months or 4 months or 8 months, and then I will start living like I used to live. uh, this is a lifelong journey. B, there are forces at play here that you're not understanding. That's so. Then the third cycle, I started researching about food, researching about what is it that I'm eating, what is it am I doing that I'm falling back into this obesity trap. And I realized that I'd moved out of my house, and packaged food had become a very large component of my diet. And I, even non-packaged food, I was eating outside. I was not getting my mom's home cooked food, etc. And packaged food companies were lying to my face. And actually, the nuanced version is they were not lying. They were telling me half truths, right? Like you guys were discussing, that they can't lie about the amount of protein in that packet, but they can use English words like protein rich and diabetic friendly, and which mean nothing. Like, what does diabetic friendly mean? My dad, who is diabetic, feels that diabetic friendly means he can have 3 of those biscuits. That's his interpretation of it. The glycemic load of, at a singular biscuit level, that biscuit has a lower GI, glycemic index, than a normal biscuit. But if you have three of those, the glycemic load is far higher than having one normal biscuit, right? So I started understanding all of that.
So
Yeah.
at what point was it you realized that that perspective is not what it is? Like you
It
realized
was in
that
my third cycle. So I was 26 years
okay,
of age. For the third time, I dropped 30 kgs. I start this third time I'd done it scientifically. I like there was a period of time when I used to read research papers end to end just so that no one's fooling me. I just want to know everything on my own without any middleman. And that's the time when I started writing a blog called Fit Shit. And this was a side hustle. Like I was doing my own like a full time job at Unilever, and over the weekends I used to write this blog, which was I felt so cheated. Ki I had to go through this thrice, and it's painful, right? Like it's not a easy journey. It's not just painful for you; it's painful for people around you, etc. I think no one else should have to go through this. Now that I've discovered some truths, I should share them with the world. I started doing that through the blog. The blog started getting a lot of traction, and these were like long 1500 word, 2000 word articles, in a day and age when people told me that people don't even stop their thumb for 2 seconds on an Instagram photo. People are like commenting, writing to me, telling me, "Iske bare mein likho. Why don't we talk about this?" All of that stuff. So I figured that at least for a certain set of audience, my friends, people around me, etc., they were going through the same experience with their own health as I was, which is that they felt confused. They felt that they were doing all the right things. A lot of them would come and tell me, यार मैंने रात को रोटी खानी बंद कर दी है, और मैंने carbs कम कर दिए हैं, लेकिन मेरा तो weight कम होता ही नहीं है, etc. Right? So a lot of doubts and feeling of confusion. B, severe lack of trust with packaged food companies, at least. Like, I'm damn sure you ask any friend of yours, do you believe your packaged food brand, and they will have a healthy level of distrust. They just don't know how they are being lied to, right? And I was a marketer, right? So I was doing this exact thing, but I was working on personal care. So I was selling fairness creams and shampoos. So I knew the tricks of the trade, and the same tricks were being applied to food. Yeah. So over time, 3 weight loss cycles happened. The blog I wrote for 3 years on the trot, that got a lot of love and attention. I could see how exactly what I do day to day on personal care is what's being done to food. Put a star mark, claim whatever you want to claim. Just that in food, it hurts a lot more, right? It's okay if you don't get fair in 14 days, you get fair in 28 days. That's fine, right? But what goes inside the body does a lot more harm. It was, I think, a accumulation of all these three that eventually led to a place where I felt that, a lot of people used to say this also, ki you keep saying everything is bad. Because that's what I would do. I would pick up a packet from a shelf and show you this is what they're claiming on the front of pack. Now let's turn it around and see whether it's true or not. And they'd be like, but hum khaye kya? Like, if everything is bad, we have to live also, right? Like, we're living in the modern world. Packaged food is not going away. Uh, so that was the penny drop that, listen, I have to be part of the solution. And just standing on the sidelines and commenting that this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, helps no one. If you believe that something which lives up to your philosophy can exist, then make it exist, or shut up. Yeah, that's how Whole Truth was started, and that's the why I put out my philosophy of food so vociferously out into the world that I could no longer, in good conscience, just be a commentator from the side, and not, bring it to life.
uh, so the why part I see among the commonality. The why part for all of you is very personal, right? I mean, family, personal. Uh, for Samit and Pranav, what they created is essentially an alternative, which could be supplementing what your ideal food source is not. In your case, the gap between your why and what, how did you arrive what that essential
Ah.
consumption is too.
Actually, when I look back at all my weight gain, weight loss cycles, and I didn't come from a performance world, right? I came from the exact opposite, that I was obese and I was just trying to get normal, right? Uh, I realized that I in these three weight loss cycles, I tried everything, right? I tried keto, I tried going vegan for a while, I tried paleo, I tried low carb, all sorts of fat diets, and they worked for a while. But I found none of them to be sustainable. So after going through all of this, after writing Fit Shit, I had written a blog post about my one unified theory of eating well is maximize nutrition per calorie. Yeah. Stop worrying about calories, stop worrying about it. I think calorie counting is, by the way, a great tool to get started. But the last stage of evolution, at least my thought process reached, was if you can maximize nutrition per calorie, chances that you will overeat are very, very low. And how do you maximize nutrition per calorie? My simplest answer that I could arrive at, which explained it to my friends, was eat real food. Real food is nutritious. And the example there is two apples and one third a bar of chocolate have the same, or half a bar of chocolate have the same calories. Show me someone who can eat two apples. It's so nutrient dense, it is so jam packed with nutrients that it'll fill you up. Right? Same with home food, right? When you're eating at home, unless you mom's made some very favorite dish like rajma chawal that you're pailing, uh, it's actually very tough to overeat that food because it's fresh, nutritious food. And actually, one of our consumers later on told us a great line that the definition of junk versus nutritious food is this: junk makes you want to have more and more and more, whereas nutritious food satiates you. You feel you're done, you want to stop in a happy way, right? Uh,
So our kitchens, our moms were from day old
yeah,
doing
yeah.
calorie counting, cooking
Yeah,
already.
because they were optimizing for nutrition. And our bodies, see, the fundamental deceit is the gatekeeper to the body is the tongue, whereas the person to be serving is the gut, right? But this fellow is the gatekeeper. This fellow optimizes for taste, whereas this fellow wants nutrition. Yeah. So if I can hack this guy can keep shouting that please give me nutritious stuff, but I've hacked this guy because the gatekeeper is easy to cheat, right? If we can take the game back to saying, listen, these two don't have to be at loggerheads. Nutritious food actually is tasty. It's actually hard to make food with real ingredients, with good ingredients, that's not tasty. Proof again, everyone thinks their mom is the best cook in the world. Probabilistically not possible, right? It's just that she gets the cleanest ingredients, the freshest ingredients, and makes it with love. That's it, right? So that's the. I thought that and I wanted to do this at scale, right? Like as a marketeer, as a brand manager, I knew that complex messages don't travel. So my first task was to simplify it to its most atomic insight. According to me, the most atomic insight was the scientific atomic insight is maximize nutrition per calorie. The consumer facing version of it is eat real food. And if you can do that, everything else will get sorted.
Quick one before we move. So, for you, the end point or the touch point when consumers found out what you have to offer to them started off as protein bars,
Yeah.
right? So, what was the the narrative or thesis around why protein bar and why it wouldn't have been anything else?
Actually, it's a combination of serendipity and strategy. And honestly, serendipity came first.
But you're an MBA, so I thought you would still say strategy.
But I'm no longer
It's
trying to climb up a corporate ladder that I have to,
works for you.
say half truths to make my way up.
Yes.
It honestly was when I was writing the blog. I wrote one blog post about the best and worst protein bars in India. And what I'd done was I used to go to this local Nature's Basket, pick up food packets, and I told you, I'll show you the front of pack and prove or disprove thesis. I'd done that for the entire range of protein bars available, and that became a super hit article. Even today, if you search on Google, it'll rank. And I didn't have any SEO background, etc. Right? So uh, during the research for that article, I realized that protein bar is actually very easy to make. All you need is a oven and a mixie. And this idea of, can there be a brand which is so clean that declares all ingredients on front of pack? Can it exist? Had been playing in my mind. So I thought this is a nice category to just try it in. Okay, I also had this doubt. I don't come from a food background. I had this doubt that maybe this can't be done. Maybe these guys are doing it because to make it shelf stable, to make it properly bound, etc. It can't happen. So I started tinkering with the protein bar purely because I'd done this article. The article hit off. I realized that it's easy to make. I had a theoretical construct of what a clean protein bar might look like. कि dry fruits वगैरह से बन सकती है, whey protein डालना उससे बन सकती है. And that, like 6-7 months of tinkering, and my friends at Unilever were my guinea pigs. Every other week I would take, versions of it and make them try. And in 5-6 months, it got to a place where, when I skipped a week, they'll be like, "Laya nahi tu protein bar, what happened?" So I realized, shit, this can be done. It's not been done because no one's applied this lens to food, right? So I basically got to a product which my friends were telling me, shit, this is the tastiest protein bar we've ever had.
Okay.
Right? So then came the question of, do I have the conviction now that I have a product also, I have a brand also in my mind, do I have the conviction to leave and start with this product? That's when the strategic rationalization also happened that, see, as a startup, actually on paper, startups shouldn't exist because everything the big company has more of. They have more money, they have more distribution, they have better talent. What do we have? We basically just have enthu and agility, right?
Yeah.
We shouldn't exist. And hence, in the beginning, you need some unfair advantage. You need a Trojan horse. You need some, something that you can do that these guys can't do. You have zero advertising money, right? I wanted to win over, I was very clear from a marketing lens. I wanted to win over the absolute top tier influential, food and fitness influencer, and not the influencer in the Instagram term. Like, I'm sure you are the fitness influencer in your 8, 10, 20 people friend circle, right? Similarly, you would have a finance influencer in your circle. Maybe that's Nikhil,
Yeah.
right? You will have a travel influencer in your circle. That's the influencer I'm talking about. When you meet your friends, you have this one guy that you listen to.
Yeah.
I wanted to win that guy, right? I knew that brand wahan se banega. If these guys start saying that this is the right brand, 20 people will get multiplied, right? Who are the people who are having protein bar or even today eat protein bar as a category? It's a measly 200 crore per annum category in the country. It's such an evolved use case that actually it self-selects the right kind of user, right? It is the Dilips of the world and the Samits of the world who would be having protein bars, right? So that's when it clicked in my mind that actually this is the best category to go into because I don't have to do any targeting, I don't have to do any advertising. These are the most well-read, most informed,
Awareness and education is
aware.
established.
They will find me. They will try me, and if I have confidence in my product, it will win them over and they will talk about me. So that's where the strategy then got bolted on to the serendipity that had happened.
No, so actually, good point. While you was building that out, I was just realizing that although each one of you are building to an audience which may or may not overlap, for some it is the health conscious already. For some it is perhaps sitting on the fringe, and for some it is to kind of elevate, their lifestyle and come into the next cohort. Uh, you know, two spectrum which I'm not been able to figure out even now, even after spending so much on the ring side. First as a builder myself, and now on the other side of the table talking to entrepreneurs like you, is how large is the market, right? And weirdly, for me, the vectors are India has perhaps for every cohort of lifestyle issues the maximum audience size. You could talk diabetes or obesity or PCOD or any of that sort. I mean, last data I read, collectively India has around 400 to 450 million people who at any point of time have some lifestyle issue, right? But I am unable to understand how much of that translates into an industry, and let's, for the lack of the right word, call um, the right eating food. So I don't want to categorize just supplement, or I don't want to categorize maybe what is protein, but healthy food. Right, for some it could be alternating or supplementing with a supplement, or some it could be the right form of whole food. How large is the market? And any of you guys, because you are a builders, you guys are talking to investors, you got to convince them to put money, and this usually comes to you. So as an entrepreneur now, when, because all of each one of you are beyond the idea stage right now, right? You're beyond a level where it was just a thought on a napkin, and you just went by the gut feeling, which initially you guys had. At a stage right now where you are looking into a spectrum where it's a market, and people are asking what is the size of the market. So how large do you think is that market for which you're building? Any of you?
My opinion on this is that putting out a quantified number on it is not the correct metric. I
Mhm.
would treat it as a more broader conversation. Like you correctly mentioned, we are number one in a lot of lifestyle diseases that we see. Number one as the heart attack capital, diabetes capital. These are certainly not good markers that we see as a country which is growing at this rapid pace. Uh, COVID has played a large part in, you know, the awareness of what preventive healthcare as a model could look like. Earlier, the entire age group that I operate in felt that यार health का ध्यान तो 40 के बाद रखेंगे यार, अब क्या होने वाला है. But COVID really showed us that nothing is invincible, and a larger control on your lifestyle and your health from day zero will definitely help you, have a better quality of life. I would not comment on the longevity. I would say quality of life rather. If we look at the statistics of growing GDPs around the world in the past 50 years, there is a direct correlation between the spend on nutrition against the rising per capita income of a country. This shows as a clear marker that India is well poised to adopt this kind of a structural or a clinical shift, I would say. At True Native, what we are doing is slightly different, which is merging nutrition and FMCG.
Mm.
I'm pure play, not a supplementation brand alone. For example, we recently launched a product called Everyday Fiber. It topped the charts. We are one of the best sellers across all the marketplaces. And why did we launch the product? Because when we were back at the drawing board, we realized that stomach health and gut health is a category which is so large but not attended to in India, right? Most of us in our lifespan or in our household have faced some or the other issues with our gut or stomach, and predominantly obesity and blood sugar is all related to your gut. And what was solving for that in my market is a churan or a isabgol or a laxative. So the job of a laxative or a churan or an isabgol is to push out the stool that is stuck into your system. That has no kind of effect, which is creating a positive flora in your stomach, which is helping your body perform better. So we wanted to attack the root, right? Instead of solving the morning problem, why not solve the system that is helping you sustain a better lifestyle as a quality of life, right? So there is when we developed Everyday Fiber, and once we launched it, we saw tremendous response because India as an economy is very open to learning and adopting to healthier lifestyles. The message and the, I would say the entire marketing has to be in a way wherein people are being educated. And that's what Shashank has also done brilliantly in the last few years. Me being an active consumer of not just his bar but his content as well. The post that he was talking about, which went viral, I have, as a young guy, read that post and following his entire journey. What they've really done is educated the customer as to what is good and what is bad for them and how they are supposed to be taking informed decisions for their particular diet or lifestyle. So I feel time as a number is not a very reliable metric in my mind. The category seems to be growing as per reports at about 20 to 23% CAGR, which is fairly fast. And I believe that as India climbs up the ladder of success and progress with better per capita income, the spends and the adoption of this kind of a lifestyle is only going to keep growing. So I
Yeah.
would say I'm pretty bullish on how this market looks. not just with value, but the thought behind it as well.
Yeah, so, no, fair point. I mean,
So I'll just give you my 2 bits about TAM.
yeah.
So there are some specifics to this category. So the recent report by Avendus kind of quantified the penetration of healthy eating in India at about 11%. So I'm looking at the macro lens of all food,
This is 11% of what the overall spend. What an household does?
overall spend on food,
Okay.
F&B. 11% is the penetration in India where people are actively seeking out healthy foods.
Mhm.
Now, talking about the TAM, you can look at it through different lenses. If I look at the overall size of the nutraceutical category, it's about $10 billion as
Okay.
it stands today.
$10 million in India.
$10 billion in India. That's about 80,000 crores. Again, split up into three major subsections. About 1/3 of that is dietary supplements, which is 25,000 crores. About 44% is functional beverages, and the balance is functional foods. I think it's the other way around. Functional foods is about 44%, and the balance is functional beverages. So broadly, we do have some numbers and a sense check to this. Looking at it from another lens, 11% is the penetration of F&B, wellness F&B in India. So all said and done, where we would be playing, for example, would be this 25,000 crore TAM, which includes things like Ayush, vitamins, protein supplements, healthy snacks, and so on.
Okay.
Impressive.
So is that 11%? I mean, to you, Shashank, right? I mean, you raised money, perhaps from the few marquee investors we have in the country, and I'm sure this is you've crossed paths with it multiple times because that's a common word in the venture investment space, and Pranav might have also done that. Is that 11%, as he said, is it big enough market? Is it growing? Or for someone like you, does it really matter as you kind of building a company which is also trying to question the status quo of what others are trying to do, because you're taking on, I don't know, I mean, for you, is it FMCG a competitor or who is your competitor? But they're large guys who are across all.
Yeah.
And to Pranav's point, right? I mean, the reason why I'm interested to understand is this, since we established the why and what, my interest to also kind of create an open source template for others to figure out how to think through if they have to go out today and build anything in the health space, whether it could be nutrition, whether it could be fitness, could be anything. And in particular, for example, if it's, so I consume a few products which are very niche, let's say for athletic performance.
Yeah.
Now, that would not have a large bottoms of pyramid audience, right? Very few people would be there. And therefore, for that reason, I have to get it from outside of the country. There are not enough players in India who are not, probably there are none
Yeah.
in India who are creating this, because that's not a market for them.
Yeah.
So if I have to create that today, my heart would say, I am a customer, I would need it, but I might just end up probably 500 odd people in the country who may actually need it, regardless of whether what price it is. And that's not great business as one product, right? So
Yeah.
how are you looking that when someone is asking you on the TAM and the market size?
So I think there are 2-3 questions there, and let me start by saying that I think in most of our cases, and I can definitely speak for ourselves, but I can tell from other story also that we are fairly mission driven, right? Like, so I think most founders who are mission driven start with the mission and they figure out the TAM as they go along. That's the honest truth. But of course, if you are trying to build a VC funded business where you want someone to come and invest in you, then it's only fair for both you and for them to know how large can this thing be. You know, when I had started, I was starting with protein bars, and I said the category itself is 200 crores. So even if I got 100% of market share, which is impossible, I could just be a 200 crore business, right? Thankfully, people who invested in us understood at a paper plan stage that we're not building a protein bar company, we're building a truth company.
And was that hard reality to you clear, or did it
Yeah,
evolve?
it was very clear to me. I went to raise money with just two things in my hand: a prototype of the protein bar and my brand on a page. And this is something I'd learned at Unilever, that if you can't write down your brand on a page, you don't know your brand. And you know, that too is like not a paragraph. It's like 4, 5, 6 lines of what's the key insight, what's the differentiator, what's the USP, etc. Uh, for example, our definition of our insight is no one likes being lied to, right? And a good insight is one which I don't have to explain. If I say it, you will just agree, right? Like young, old, boy, girl, Indian, American, black, white. No one likes being lied to, right? You might go to a five-star restaurant, drum up a 30,000 rupee bill. If that guy charges one Diet Coke extra, it'll rile you up. Clearly, it's not about the money, right? You don't like being taken for a ride. And we believe that consumers had been taken for a ride for far too long, and that's why we exist, right? So if I approach the market and then going to the TAM question, actually, more than explaining it to your investors, I think it's a good exercise to explain it to yourself. Because I think there is no good business or bad business. It is, if you're going down the VC funding path, there is a certain expectation that you're taking upon yourself of growth and return, etc. And that cannot play out if the market is not large enough. So you shouldn't be lying to yourself, right? Like the example that you gave, high performance, athletic, like gels, etc. market in India is very, very small, right? Cannot be a VC funded business in India. Now I'll come to how we think of TAM. I think if you approach it from the macro point of view, that 100 million diabetics, this, that, etc., you can come arrive at any number. What's true is the conversation around health is extremely large, right? And I think this misnomer of there is a healthy person and an unhealthy person is just incorrect. And the same guy who gets up in the morning, loves to go work out, eat clean, have a whey protein shake, have a bar, etc., go through the day's been tough, I come back home, I want to have a nice dinner, finish it off with a nice piece of dessert. I give in every 3-4 days where I'm like, lao ya dessert, lao mere ko khana hai, right? Like that, the food gives me happiness. I'm the same guy, right? And we are all on this spectrum. Some of us might be 90% nice and 10% naughty, and some others might be 60-40, right? So A, it's the same person. B, the conversation is exceptionally large. Like my parents, my uncles, aunts, family groups, like conversations around young लोगों को कैंसर क्यों हो रहा है, हार्ट डिजीज से क्यों मर रहे हैं, डायबिटिक्स इतना क्यों हो गया है, ये वो is very high, right? The problem where the constriction on TAM in our country comes is ability to do anything about it monetarily, right? To give you an data point, I think greater than 50-60% of this country's F&B market sits at under rupees 20 ka price point. Yeah, because we are not a rich nation. We are having this conversation. We are the top 0.1% of this
Yeah.
country, right? So you might be very worried about your health, etc., but you don't have the money to do anything about it. And unfortunately, today in our country, the two people who can eat healthy are A, the farmer who's growing it in his farm, and B, the rich guy who can afford clean food, which is very expensive. The middle chunk is screwed, right? You don't have access to the fresh produce, and you don't have the money to go and buy organic and go and buy super clean food, because like our brand, making clean food is expensive. Like the ingredients are expensive, right? And hence we come at TAM from a disposable income point of view. We believe that everyone wants to eat healthier, everyone wants to be healthier. Question is, who can do something about it? Can do something about it is defined by how much disposable income you have after paying your rent, your school's, child's school fee, and basics of life are sorted. After that, you have the money to act on this feeling of mujhe healthy khana hai, right? Broadly speaking, we've seen that comes to people / households who earn upwards of 12 to 15 lakh per annum are the people who are able to save some money beyond all the basics, and then they start investing in health and travel. These are the two things that people start first investing in, right? When you approach it from that lens, then you can look at TAM from a taxpayer data point of view. So for example, last year about 1.5 to 2 crore people paid taxes in our year, in our country. That means 1.5 to 2 crore people declared an income of greater than 5 lakh per annum. Let's say that actual number is 2.5 crores, that 50 lakh people didn't declare correctly. Maybe half of those are in this above 12-15 lakh per annum sort of zone. We think that's our TG. Yeah, and we try and find these people to have a conversation with. And these people, the great thing is people like us, the four of us here, we just happen to have been born in Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, and not in San Francisco or London or New York, right? Like the content we consume, the conversations we have, the aspirations we hold are the same now for this group, right? Just that the access to products that we have is far worse, like you were saying, right?
In fact, I would extend that to tier 2 as well.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
no difference in the
It is
youth
growing.
today
Absolutely.
in Nagpur,
Internet-
Nasik, Satara, Ahmedabad.
I would say
It's pretty much the same.
Internet penetration has played a large part to this.
I actually
awareness.
think, yeah, that
I think Delhi, Bombay
of
no
course,
longer is
so
the...
information asymmetry so has gone away entirely. Layer that with disposable income, which is there in tier 2 towns also. So it's very,
Definitely.
that's something. When we approach it from this disposable income lens, it's very clear कि इंदौर के किन 3 पिन कोड में मेरा कंज्यूमर बैठा है, क्योंकि the
Correct.
thing about the rich people is actually we are very
Clustered.
homogeneous. You know, rich people are just rich people. They are not Hindu, Muslim, Sikh. They are not. They actually we
Similar
like.
attributes.
They're very similar. We go to the same places. We go to the same cafes.
Live in the
We go
same
to the same
geography.
shows. We live in the same pin codes. We cluster in the same places, and we do
No,
the
I'll
same.
go one
kind
step
of-
further to say that the youth, by and large, is homogeneous now, regardless even of financial status. By and large,
The aspiration is homogeneous. Ability to act on it is not homogeneous.
correct. That's a
and
given.
hence to
That's a given.
build a business around something, and one is hoping that you target the ones who can do something about it. The speed at which this set of people who have the disposable income is growing very fast because the country is growing very
GDP is
fast,
one. Yes.
right? So stay alive for 10 years. There is enough tailwind in the country that this set itself, hopefully this 1.5 to 2 crore of taxpayers should be 10 crores in 10 years.
Exactly. So
Right? So
very similar point like I was trying to make, and for us, I mean, not as a company, but my entire mindset tells me that for me, it's not total addressable market, it's total achievable market. I will figure my GTM, my scale, my growth, depending on what market I can achieve and what market I'm able to foresee in the coming few fiscal years to come. So I would say that is a more responsible metric. वो पिच डेक में डालना आसान है कि हाँ 30 बिलियन लोग हैं और ये है. But I mean, they're not looking for solutions, right?
Top down India, you can come to any
Yeah,
number because
exactly.
anyone who talks of India as one market
It's not.
knows
It's a
bullshit about
In fact,
India.
even
right?
if we I've been traveling a lot within India for the last 2 years now, and I realized that every state has its own way of functioning. The language changes, the food changes, the habits change, the lifestyle changes, the dynamics change. So I would say India is a geography which is very varied, and expecting it to act like a single faced consumer market is something which is not.
But that's where
realistic.
I on the rich people, I differ. Once you
Same.
enter a certain
They
Start
behave the same.
demographic.
then you become the same.
Yeah.
You speak
I
in
think
English.
along with TAM, you need to also drill down into the SAM and the SOM, as they say. The
And that is-
serviceable, addressable market and the serviceable, obtainable market, right? And that's where your individual definitions of a brand, be it taxpayers or be it a certain demographic of youth or so on, or tier 1, tier 2 or so on, will come in. So I think you need to marry a top-down approach. Top-down is just a universe, right? That what is it that I'm actually going after? Is it a 200 crore market or is it a 20,000 crore market? Having said that, then you can always apply a bottoms-up or a research method to do your sanity checks on that.
My entire
So an iterative process would actually be a better approach.
My entire process of wanting to enter the market was very funny. In fact, having traveled around the world, I often, being a food fanatic, I have been rushing to groceries to see what kind of availability is there on stock on our shelf, right? And it could be from Thailand to America to London. You enter on 9/11, 7/11, and you will see a plethora of options and variety of offerings. And years ago, when I got back to my country, I was seeing the same old product giving me brain shakti on the shelf, right? And just a similar kind of, I would say, mafia capturing that shelf. And I felt that India will grow out of this consumption pattern. and that made me believe that before I got onto the numbers, it made me believe that we are on the right path to build for tomorrow,
Mm.
not for today, because this progression has to happen. Like you mentioned, you often import a lot of your products which are not available in India. But as a brand which is looking to be an umbrella brand going ahead, I believe if you build the product, the customer who wants to obtain or consume you will find you.
Yeah, no, actually, good point. So I think the takeaway for me was to kind of establish how entrepreneurs like you uh, would try to revalidate yourself when you're trying to build that for whom you're building and how large is that who, right? Because it's somewhere in that journey that also becomes important in terms of it to get married with your ambition. Because some businesses are visible, like you said, some businesses at the moment may not be. For example, Summit is building a company where he's bootstrapping it. You guys have raised some money.
Yeah.
Summit at some point may raise money, but this conversation do cross paths for entrepreneurs when they sit across to a potential investor that look at from what heuristics do we look at it, how sizable the market is, which also kind of brings down another aspect that if the market becomes big, which seems to be because one side there's an opportunity and one side someone is trying to serve for that opportunity, there's also a lot of confusion which comes up. And unlike any other industry, health becomes a very sorry state because now everyone is trying to chase you to say, hey, I'll try to either optimize you or I will try to help you cut weight or curb diabetes or whatever it is, right? And it's unlike any other industry, right? In e-commerce, you can get discounts to make someone spend more and shop more. It's not depreciating your quality of life, right? So could be travel, so could be any other business. But in health, when a lot of creators and entrepreneurs go out and build, and now there's a sizable market, there's a first world confusion which comes in to an audience. And so I want to now get to that point, and this is both from a consumer point of view, the confusion, and from someone for the work what I do at Rainmatter Health is to also talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and creators. And my first question often is that, look, whatever you're claiming to solve for, uh, what is the efficacy to it, right? How can someone validate beyond what your marketing claim is, right? And I understand you have a way of doing that, but it still comes down to the point that, okay, how does an end average Joe who's been told by a trainer to eat 100 gram or 1 gram per your body weight of a protein, or a doctor says that eat a certain X amount of you need to, vitamin D, which should supplement you, right? How does that end consumer knows what I'm eating is what I'm getting?
Yeah.
Because everyone, I don't even think even in the developed world, first world, there is an option where a consumer will buy a product and go and do a food lab testing and come and consume. That doesn't happen,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So what is an average Joe's lens to understand beyond the marketing? At the end of the day, you're also doing education. You're also try to tell the world what is what. What's an average Joe's lens that how do I know amongst the 100 brands and everyone is claiming I am healthy and I'll make you do this? Uh, who is right? Who's wrong?
So I think there are a couple of things around the mistrust on this, and I think nutraceutical is a prime target in this segment. Firstly, nutraceutical is a younger cousin of pharmaceuticals. So it's food that you actually put into your body, food for a purpose, not just like like apparel or cosmetics, which is just taken for vanity metrics. Now, there are two things which are a problem in this industry. One is the marketing claims, and one is the label compliance. There are two issues. Whether when it says so many grams of protein, cholesterol, fat, and so on, whether that's actually inside the product. So that's a compliance issue, which can be solved for through more stringent compliance by FSSA and so on. And second is the marketing claims, which is a larger issue. Now, the problem is that most of the education I'm seeing right now with consumers is driven by SEO, SEM, not by authentic information, because it's the information age and there's information overload. So you'll go to Google, you'll go to wherever else to search for facts, right, about your nutrition, and most of it is SEO driven. So that is where I think we have a very serious problem about what are the facts. For example, you can go out there and Google for the best trainers in the country. I'm talking about fitness in general, or the best nutritionists in the country. And the list you see is something which you yourself can figure out whether these guys are actually the best nutritionists and trainers in the country, or are they the guys who are the most SEO, SEM savvy. The same applies to nutraceuticals and wellness products.
Can they? No, but so I want to kind of go back, stoop down to a level. If I remember, this is age old when Big Basket was not there or any of those quick commerce was not there. You would go down to the store, hold a tomato, hold a any sabji vegetable, and touch and feel and say, okay, ye fresh hai, this is good, right? What is a similar equivalent when someone is going to buy a protein bar or a protein supplement or a multivitamin? I'm not asking whether that someone needs a multivitamin. Or let's establish that they need it. And there are hundreds of such brands, and everyone is trying to claim something, right? How an end consumer knows that this guy is genuine, regardless of what education or marketing or YouTube video they are putting? What's the basic heuristics for them?
I
Because
think
there's no touch and feel.
at the base of it, it's only how much trust you can generate on your brand.
Okay.
For
Yeah.
instance, like you mentioned on the Big Basket end, BB Fresh, freshest sabji order now. That is a small clue which tells me, okay, इसने sabji check की है, right? So these subtle clues and the entire formation of trust around a brand is the only possible marker, in my opinion, for a person to differentiate in this varied crowd. Like sir mentioned very correctly that nutraceuticals is under tremendous stress. I would say a portion of the market is under tremendous stress for adulteration. These components are expensive. They are being tailor-made as per Indian price points by using substandard quality products, right? We are seeing a lot of that grow, and because of, I would say, price, India is such a price-sensitive market. People often do not have the patience to verify if it's actually doing that what it's supposed to do to your body. With respect to how one should differentiate, I think like the whole truth has also brilliantly mastered is that they have gotten trust of the customer, and that also is backed by the quality of the products that you're able to supply to your probable customer as well. It's not true, whole truth alone, it's true native as well over there. So
Yeah, I mean, see, Trunativ, Neulife, Whole Truth, but Shashank, I mean, they're giving you this undue advantage that you've mastered it. But
He's the
don't you
master,
think
yes.
someone else can also master it and probably do a better job? But how does that other person know whether that product is still genuine or not?
I think we need to. The question you asked is very broad, and I think Samit started the perfect distinction that there is a problem of what you are saying your product does it do that or not, and what you're saying is in your product, is that true or not. So the nutritional label and ingredient accuracy is a regulatory problem.
It's a compliance issue.
It's a compliance problem, right? And actually FSSAI has very good rules around most of these things. The problem is that I don't think most people know that FSSAI is not a proactive agency. It's not as if they will proactively go and check everyone and say, okay, now you can do this.
So they don't do audits as part of their.
They will do audits if someone complains.
Okay.
It's reactive.
Yeah.
But they have about 22, 23 accredited labs in the country. Everyone is supposed to, these guidelines are very clear, you're supposed to get your products tested from one of these 20 to 23 labs. Only what you get in those reports can you put on your nutrition label. We are telling you, do this. We will not proactively come and check. But if some consumer complains and we come and we don't find a accredited lab ka report backing what you've written, then God help you.
So for the consumer to come and complain also means that they also might have done a cross.
They
Verification of
felt,
check.
in the worst case, something bad happened to them. That's why they made a complaint, etc. Right? Because, and you have to be, sensitive to the FSSAI's problem also. There are about 2 crore food vendors and food making companies and standalone food vendors, etc. in the country. They don't have the manpower to go and proactively check everyone before they allow a license, no one will start, right? Like the backlog will be immense. So this is how the system operates. Actually, honestly, outside of nutraceutical, uh, this problem of what you've written on the nutritional label itself is completely incorrect is not that big a problem apart from unorganized players. Ki ab koi, some street hawker has packed something in a pack and he's selling it to you, etc. Otherwise, all the big companies like a Unilever, Nestle, etc., they will never take the chance of, because if they get caught, this is a massive slap in the face. They like the downside is far higher than the upside of doing this, right?
And that issue doesn't even exist in big food.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah. And we've
right?
seen instances wherein you've had large noodle brands, etc.
And
Face
that
the
too,
brand.
like
Very, very
one or two
difficult.
small incidents also blew up, so no one does that. So actually, outside of nutraceutical, especially in whey protein, etc., this is not that big a problem in non-functional food. And just to clarify for the audience, functional food is food that you eat with the hope that someone will tell you
Some benefit.
point A से point B जाना है तो have this, right? Like muscle gain करनी है, fat loss करना है, कुछ करना है तो have that, right? 99% of food doesn't fall into functional food. It is you're having chips. There is no promise in chips that this is how it is all sold on emotion. This is how it will make you feel. You'll feel happy. You'll have Coke and open happiness and all of that will happen. This is normal food. 99%. There, the biggest problem is claims. Your nutrition label is correct, but it's hidden away in a corner in the back, and you picked one good thing about you and blasted it on the front of pack. Our internal joke is the front of pack of a is like your Tinder profile pic. Right?
Best
Like
of the best.
you like everyone is mama's boy, has a dog, plays a guitar on your Tinder pic, but you go on the first date and you realize reality kya thi, right? So that is the larger problem, and that is very, very, very tough to regulate because it's a matter of spirit versus letter, right? ASCII has a lot of rules, etc. There are a lot of rules and regulations, but you put the smartest people of the country, take them from IIT, IIMs, and put them as brand managers and ask them to find a way to call this thing diabetic friendly, and they will find a way. Right? And the industry largely self-regulates because again, the courts are so jammed up that courts are also very happy that you guys please self-regulate yourself. If you can't get to a solution, we will come in. Otherwise, so the real problem to solve is that. And there, again, the atomic real problem is who can define what is healthy. We keep calling ourselves healthy food industry, healthy food. Let's go around the room. What's your definition of healthy?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's anything which would not give me an upset stomach. I can sleep well.
So yours is a non-negative view of healthy. That bad things don't happen. It is healthy.
Yeah, there's no connotation to it. Yeah.
What is your definition of healthy? Like, what is healthy food?
I would say something that is doing more good than bad to my body. That is the definition of healthy for me. Or adding some positive value to my body.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, something which is not unhealthy
Is healthy.
is healthy.
Yeah.
And for me, I would not look at it through a natural versus packaged lens,
Yeah.
because I don't think that, for me, that's not the issue. There are natural products which can be equally bad for you.
Yeah.
I mean, let's look at sugar itself, right? Sugar itself is basically a derivative of two natural sugars, the table sugar. So for me, I think unhealthy would essentially mean something which is not
See,
healthy.
this is the problem, right? Like all of us, and we think about this day in and day out, have such different definitions of
Health, yes.
both healthy food and Abhi, though I didn't get to what does health mean to you? Like when do you
Yeah.
believe
You
you
are
are
healthy.
healthy?
Correct.
Right? And my
That's a
own
very good
definition-
question. That's
Yeah,
a very
very
good
good.
question.
My own definition has evolved so much
Correct.
over time, and this is precisely the confusion that the food marketeer preys upon. Because, and this unfortunately bloody starts in America every point of time, right? Every 5 years they'll come up with a
new pyramid.
a new definition of healthy. They own the definition of healthy.
Basically,
for
yeah.
10 years it is keto, for 10 years it is paleo, for 10 years it is low carb, for 10 years it is now going to be organic. Like I was at Whole Foods last year, and now the entire shelf is
Yeah.
just about organic.
I saw that last year. Yeah.
The shit I've put in it is organic shit, right? Like there was no fertilizer put. It's literally full of bad ingredients which are all organically bad. right? So
There were superfoods
yeah,
sometimes.
so this is the soft power of that country, that they own the definition of what the world believes is healthy at any point of time. Marketers sell us that shit. Then 10 years later, a research paper will come and say, oh, sorry, you know what? Fat wasn't the problem, sugar was the problem. Stop sugar. Oh, sorry, you know what? Sugar
Carbs are
wasn't
the
the problem,
problem.
carbs were the problem. Stop carbs. Right? So, which is, I said, like, once I went through the entire journey, thought about this deeply, I was like, dude, what is our take on healthy? It came down to this. Our take on healthy is real. You eat real food, not something which has been like the sugar example. Sugar is great in fruits. Have the whole fruit. Don't derive the sugar out of it. Sugar cane is great. Don't chemically extract the sugar out of it and have it. Right? Eat real food is my definition of healthy
What
food.
is healthy food?
And now, come just to sum it up, if regulatorily I have gotten myself tested from accredited labs, so what I'm saying is what is in the packet. And B, from a consumer lens, I'm actually not making any claims. I'm not saying ये प्रोटीन बार खा के ये हो जाएगा वो हो जाएगा. I'm just saying इसमें ये 5 चीज़ें हैं. ये इन पांचों के नाम, you can read them, you can pronounce them, you can find them in your kitchen. This is my definition of healthy. If it speaks to you, please buy this packet of food.
So guys, common parallel amongst everything what you guys said is the fact that trust has to be established onto who is saying what. For someone, it could be a large, one of those FMCG guys, or it could be a small guy who just popped in and somehow they establish the trust. And earning the trust and establishing the trust itself is a process. It's not an overnight journey, right? Each one of you, just to set the context, right? So, for example, Pranav, the way he puts out, now he's got an ambassador, he's got a face to the company, big Bollywood celebrity. For both of you, there's no celebrity. For Shashank is the celebrity. He's going out there. For Samit, he has a very different approach. He's putting education first, and he's putting very in-depth content out there. And this comes in from a point of view. Now, if someone has wish how truthful they can be in whatever, putting the messaging out there from a view is super important. Like I said, there are thousands of brands out there, and part reason why someone decides to raise money or not is to actually accelerate that game, so that more and more people know about them.
Yeah.
For some people, it could be going through a trusted face who has an trust protocol. For some people, it could be, why can't I be that face, right? Now, instead of asking you guys what has worked, because clearly few things have worked for you guys, I want to kind of roll the dice. What didn't work when you guys were trying to establish that trust? Because you all came bottoms up, right? You didn't get spinned off from a large FMCG company who's getting into this category of either nutraceuticals or dietary supplements. So what in the past few years didn't work for you till the time you realize what is working? So just to sum it up, he's getting a face, you are becoming your own face, he's putting textual content, or in whichever way, for both of you it's kind of a common parallel, and that seems to be working. What didn't work at all in whatever you tried so far?
So first of all, I'll bring in a bit of more nuance from my lens to the question, that definition of what does working mean keeps changing with
Of course, yeah.
life stage of
Of the company,
of
yeah.
the company.
Yeah.
And
In whatever
hence-
capacity you guys are so
and
far.
hence I'm going to answer it purely currently on the plank of what's worked and what's not worked in the service of building trust, not reach, frequency,
Yeah.
media.
Let's say
business.
specific to
Yeah.
whole truth.
And specific to whole truth, and in the service of building trust, what has worked and what has not worked.
Yeah.
For us, right? So we actually think, again, because we are building a brand which is premised on the fact that big food has broken people's trust. We obviously had to think very deeply about trust aata kahan se hai, right? Like what builds trust, and we have an internal framework for it. We believe trust is built on 3-4 things. It starts with expertise. You trust experts, right? Like and which is my common pet peeve, that like, why the hell does the best cricketer of this country tell me which tire to
Yeah.
buy. Like, you don't have any expertise in this, right? So you trust experts, uh, you trust people your friends trust, right? So there's a community angle to it, that uh, uh, and it's for very good reason. There is intelligence in crowds, right? Like, so you trust people your friends trust, you trust consistency. If you haven't lied to me in 10 years, chances that you will lie to me in the 11th year are very, very low. So it compounds, with time. uh, so we've always tried to build the brand on all of these pillars very consciously. So, but now that we are, one can say we are exiting our 1 to 10 and into a 10 to 100 sort of journey. uh, One challenge that scaling presents is, we've always done long form. We're born out of a blog, right? So we've done long form written word content, because we believe that the problem with food and fitness journalism, health journalism, is that in a 10-second video, you by definition will lose context, and you will be reduced to saying 8 ways Amir Khan got 8-pack abs for Dangal, and 10 reasons why avocados are superfoods, and all of that stuff, which is just devoid of context, right? But problem is, now that we have to scale to the next level, we have to reach a very much larger absolute number of people for the next phase of the journey. And long form content doesn't reach a large number of people, right? We run a newsletter called Truth Be Told, read by 10,000 people, one of the like top newsletters by size, and by far the best health journalism, I'm sure, in this country. I'm not even going to be try and be humble about this, but 10,000 doesn't cut it. So it's not working for this phase of the journey. How do I take what's worked for me till now? Because till now, 10,000 people reading a newsletter every weekend was giving me tremendous trust with a set of people, which was enough. But no, now it's no longer enough. Now this number needs to be 10 lakh people. Uh, but unfortunately, to do that, I'll have to do video, because only video travels. But unfortunately, the video that travels is short form video, not this long form 2 hour podcast. Again, 1,000 people will watch it, 10,000 people will watch it, right? That's the limit of it. So, to answer your question, currently, what's not working is, from a mission lens, when we approach content in its most pure form, the way we believe people should be taught about health is with full context. It was working till now, but now it doesn't work.
So, uh, kind of get to the nuance aspect of it, right? I mean, what has not worked is also a function of what the evolved aspiration is, also, right? I mean, if you
Yeah.
want to now reach out to, let's say, an audience size, and that's also what gets tied into that TAM and SAM, like how large
Yeah.
you want to reach out,
Yeah.
that existing playbook would not work,
Yeah.
right? So if you're now reaching out to, let's say, double your growth,
Yeah.
it clearly can't be the same thing what you worked, and therefore
Yeah.
that definitely will not work right now, right?
Yeah.
And that for sure would keep evolving. So the next growth tier what you have, a certain hook would work for them, but probably, let's say, I don't know, a year after that, that will become redundant. Something else have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
come in play, because the existing piece would not work, right?
As founders, I think we are just born to reinvent the wheel every time we are stuck, right?
Yeah, I think the playbook needs to keep on evolving over every
And
day.
as the consumers are evolving, you have to be at that curve wherein you are able to meet the expectation of the consumer. My personal belief on this has been, India as a country is a very aspirational country. It's built on aspirations. And in the consumer segment, where I was trying to fight and create space for myself, um, you needed to have aspiration around you. And for us, that came through the celebrity, which is Kareena Kapoor, joining our brand as the brand face. It definitely, for people who are wanting to understand as to how this results in sales, it does not result in sales. It is purely going to help you create a structure to your company, create trust to your company, that when a person is probably browsing through your products, having a familiar face associated with the company does give you that added benefit of a quicker purchase. And we've seen this time and again that aspirational brands are certainly able to create that lifetime value with the customer. If we look at a bira, why does a bira look cooler in your hand against normal beverage?
Yeah, or
It
a
does look
Kingfisher,
cool.
yeah.
They've created aspiration. Similarly, why does a boat look cool as a headset against a Chinese one? Because they've created that aspiration around the brand. Maybe their route was creating it through the multiple brand ambassador channels that they had. You've seen A-listers from Hardik to Kiara to Kartik Aaryan, everyone wear boat, right? So India as a country works on emotions and aspirations, and for us, I would say a quicker hack to accelerate and be present and be a valid option in that market was bringing structure and a face to the company. That was the personal anecdote I would like to share on why we chose to have a strong brand ambassador on day zero itself.
Samit, I mean, in combination of both of you guys, in fact, what I wanted to check with these guys also, probably you could share, is that often at times, there are some experiments you do and it clearly gives you an instant or perhaps an elapsed time outcome that it is not working. And so therefore, what I was meaning is, so I see a lot of brands which are putting left right ads on Instagram or Facebook. I see a lot of brands which are putting Google ads, which also has to translate that for, let's say, a search engine like Google. Someone has to search for a keyword. Like for example, I don't know how many people will go to Google and say fiber, everyday fiber product. I don't know what the search density
Or the
would be.
brand name is what you're
Brand name, if the brand stands out, but from a, let's say, from a product point of view, from a consumption point of view, how many people go to a Google search and say everyday protein bar? And therefore it would make sense if you put an ad, right? So a shoe, yes, this, cheapest running shoe, massive keyword, right? So those experiments, right? Did you guys do any of that experiments, celebrity endorsements, which you realize didn't work at all? And this is agnostic to your ethos, right? I mean, that might evolve over a period of time, but like I said, he figured it out, aspiration, and that's the stance he's taking. But is there something which you guys did and clearly gave you an outcome that for what you're building,
it didn't work.
it didn't work at all?
So for me, when I launched the D2C brand for Neulife in 2018, like I told you, we've been into different forms of businesses within nutraceuticals in the past 18 years prior to that. So in 2015, when we pivoted into wanting to develop our own D2C line, we took about 3 years to develop the products from the ground up. And when we launched it in 2018, I launched it in the form of 3 brands. I didn't call it Neulife. I called it 3 different names, each being deep, because the thought process was that I want to go deep into each category. And that kind of didn't work for me because I was trying to put money. Firstly, I'm bootstrapped because I wanted to do a few experiments and get the formula right before I raise money. And secondly, the amount of money which was required to build 3 separate brands in 3 categories was way too much. Which is why just last year we consolidated everything under just the Neulife masthead and collapsed those 3 sub brands, and we kind of took a rebirth last year. So now all the products are called Neulife. So that experiment definitely didn't work for me.
So that is, overwhelming the consumer with multiple brands.
Yeah.
Instead, kind of consolidating it.
Yeah.
And making like a singular version.
Yes.
Anything
Because I saw the ICPs for the protein segment being very different from wellness, being very different from healthy snacks. So we launched 3 separate brand names for those with 3 separate websites, 3 separate social media, everything 3.
You're driving a
And to add to it, I'm bootstrapped. So money going in 3 directions.
definitely,
So that didn't
driving
work.
a landing page view to your website
Oh,
is
yeah.
one of the most costliest affair.
Okay.
And driving it to 3 would be even costly because for us, we are also trying to create an umbrella brand, right? Wherein you are talking about all things health and nutrition. But our conscious call was very clear on day one that we will not have the capacity to build out 3 brands. Because building out a brand is one of the most expensive affairs in a crowded market like this. So we are trying to bring it under a stable of Trunativ, wherein each of these products could act as micro brands within a brand. But then the customer already has a trust developed on the master brand. So that is the basic ideation of how we are looking to build. With regards to what's not worked for us is, to be honest,
Everything has worked for you.
no, not so. Of course not. I would be in 7th. I would be on 7th heaven if that was the truth. I would say what's not worked for us is overly sharing. I feel the customer in India, specifically in our industries, they are so driven by price that at the end of the day, no matter what you claim, it boils down to the price in our industry, for say. So we've started to create a right balance of price good price and of course supporting with great quality, right? So that is something that has worked for us. For example, I'll give you an instance. We had launched a product called Fruit when this company was born about 2.5 years ago, and it was a very interesting fruit and oat mix. I imported oats from Sweden, 1800 bucks a kg, and real fruit powders from Switzerland, and crazy amount of investments done. And as a founder, I felt I've built out the perfect meal replacement breakfast, which is rather than eating a lumpy bowl of oats, I can create a oat-based, fruit-based shake, right? But the nuance was that it was priced at 100 bucks a sachet because of the ingredients that went to it. And we had, downright failure on that project because the market was not ready to accept 100 bucks for oats. They're used to eating that 15 bucks ka masala oats. So in the mind of the customer also, there is a barrier of how much I will pay for what substance.
For that $100, pointing to his cohort of audience, which is that half of the 2.5 crore people who might be paying tax of whatever 5 lakhs or plus income. Do you think even for them that 100 rupees per packet is still
My
about the
experience said yes, it is an everyday use product, right?
Oh,
You're going
okay.
to possibly wanting to replace your breakfast with it. Instead of having normal oats, I'm asking you to eat this fancier version of Swedish oats. But the customer didn't care enough if it was from Sweden or if it was the best beta glucan possibility because the price was wrong. If I relaunch the same product at a 40 bucks price margin, I can shake the market up, but it's not possible,
Hmm.
right? So I feel as brand owners, we are so close to the sun that we often believe that whatever we've created is the epitome of what the market needs, but it is not that. For us, the learning has been that listening to your customer and being as close as to the ground has helped us formulate better, make the product more acceptable to the market in all fashions, not just quality, but the price, the appeal, the brand. I feel 1 year should be down to the ground all the time, right? That's taught us. And in fact, all of our NPD, all products that we create are fueled from the demand of what the customer is wanting to buy. Me being a founder, I come from the technical backend, right? Which every new ingredient excites me. Like this could be a magical ingredient, right? And with the passion that we are building with, we often come to those
Yeah.
standpoints where we feel that, yeah, this is the next big thing. But that is the big thing in our mind. Maybe the audience that we are building for doesn't care about it at that, gravity that we do.
Okay.
So I would suggest that don't listen to your heart all the time. Also listen to your customers. They will give you some valid input, valid feedback. As a practice, uh, the entire business development team, the entire structure of our company, we've made it mandatory for every person to talk to 40 customers a month.
Okay.
What has happened in that transition is that we also see a lot of disgruntled customers where we are able to improve in that function, right? We cannot say that we've built the best company in the least possible of time. I mean, that is a false fact for anyone to claim. You're always striving to get better. How aware you are about your brand is the key to you improving every day, I would say.
The NPD point. Since you guys, so I've spent a lot of my professional world in the software world, and that's a common word. You use NPD and MVPs, right? So if you had to draw a parallel of MVP and NPDs in the software for the food world, what you guys are doing, there's a great advantage the software people have got, because when you create an MVP, you just go out and give it to 10 beta users, what we call, and you quickly iterate. So iteration is duct taping whatever the feature is and going back and then recruiting another 10 people going back. So it's in comparison to food, I feel it's a very low fidelity process, because you just do quick back, spending more
Yeah.
developer time, iterate on the product,
There's
and
no
then launch it
friction.
to a
It's
larger
not a
audience.
real world thing. It's a app that will drop in your phone. It's not a product
Correct.
that will put in your
Right, so
house.
you fix in few bugs and go back. But in the food world, what is that template looking like? Because I would imagine for you guys to, you don't have that window to first only take it to a shelf life and get 100 people and come back and reimagine the entire process, because your process will go back from zero all the way to tweaking your manufacturing, to your sourcing, to your supply chain, that what ingredient went wrong, right? So uh, not a perfect one, but typically if someone has to think through that NPD process
Yeah.
of in the food world, uh, what is that you guys have to share? What seemed to have worked over a period of
Sure.
years?
I think it's a great question, and again, a big pet peeve I have with the India VC ecosystem, because it's largely a tech-led VC ecosystem. Our definition of words like PMF, MVP are very
Yeah.
tech-oriented, right? I actually think you should not, in the CPG world, when you're making physical products, you should not put a MVP out into the market. You should put what you believe is the best fucking version of that product out into the market. Of course, when you're testing, you should have ways to have very short feedback loops before you put something into the market. So, for example, for NPD, one great benefit of being a young mission driven brand which has so much brand love is I'm on 3 WhatsApp groups with 100 of my consumers each, who are our super tasters. Whatever we make every month, we keep sending them something or the other and getting continuous feedback from them, right? And uh, making a CPG product brand is super tough, because you have to get, at the time of launch, you have to get all the 6 P's right. You have to get pack, product, proposition, price, place, promotion, everything right. It's super tough because A, there are 6 of them, and B, it's a combination of logic and magic. There is no software in the world, there is no formula in the world which will make sure that आपका सब कुछ पहले दिन perfect होएगा. So there is a component of judgment and magic and understanding human behavior, etc. involved. One place where you can be sure is product, taste, acceptance, quality. So have a small close knit group of people who love you but are not biased towards you, who will give you frank feedback, so that the product can iterate really fast. Then the next big lever is packaging, and it starts, especially for mission driven brands, it starts with, rather than what does the consumer want to know, it starts for us with what do we want to say as a brand. What are the things that we will say and we will never say? Like, we will not make claims, we will always put our ingredients on the front of pack. So the pack, 80% of it forms itself, right? Yet it is our job to make sure that it looks so distinctive that if I put it on a shelf, it stands out. You feel attracted towards it. In a cluttered aisle, when you're walking across it, it grabs your attention. You want to pick it up and explore it, etc. Again, you can have short feedback loops to do this. So when I started the brand, that time I had gotten a friend who knew 2 3 shopkeepers under his colony to allow me to keep prototype packaging wala product in the shelf, and I would just stand next to it for 2 hours and see, there were 3 other protein bars and my protein bar in a prototype packaging sitting there, and I would just observe what is happening. Like, are consumers stopping at mine? Are they picking it up? Are they just completely ignoring it, etc.? So you start getting some sense, right? And like similarly back at Fasos, we used to do this for store selection, that whatever site has come up that you can take this place for a store, we'd go and spend like 6 hours on the road standing in front of that site. I don't know what we were looking at. We were just getting a sense of the place, that ट्रैफिक इतना आता है, लोग चलते नहीं है, मेट्रो उधर है, वहाँ से इधर चल के जाते हैं, इधर चल के जाते हैं. जस्ट गेटिंग अ सेंस ऑफ द प्लेस. देयर इज नो फॉर्मूला that will get you there. Same for packaging. You're checking for distinctiveness and appeal in clutter, and there are short feedback loops that you can create around packaging. Pricing, you should have some heuristic of, against average pricing of the market, what is the relative price index that your brand usually operates at. Yeah, so there are two opposing forces, right? There is, given your cost of goods under a certain price, you cannot sell. So doesn't matter what market is priced at, I cannot be under this because this is my cost of goods. Then how much can I price it up depends on a how I believe my brand is positioned, and that again is a judgment call. But you can do some sense checks with, again, a set of consumers, give them 2 3 price points, figure out which one looks exorbitant, that this though I can't pay for a protein bar, etc. It'll help you navigate towards a zone. It'll not help you come to a exact price point, right? So this is how we've tried to build short feedback loops around each P of the marketing and product mix, with the cognizance that this thing is so damn tough, because only 50% of it is logic. The rest of it is emotion, it is magic. You're dealing with human beings who, like consumers, you ask any Unilever marketer, the biggest learning of marketing is consumers cannot tell you why they do what they do.
You have to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's so tough because, like, if I ask you, why do you buy the soap that you buy? Have you thought about it? Like, you wouldn't have thought about it for 10 years, maybe. Right? That's the whole point of brands, that I want to automate purchase and forget about it. Right? And consumers shift for the smallest of things. Like, they don't even know why they shifted. कि मज़ा नहीं आ रहा था, इसका ऑफर चल रहा था, इसकी स्मेल अच्छी लग गई.
Yeah.
And you will ask them, they will
किसी ने Katrina Kaif
rationalize.
देख लिया.
It's rationalization.
basically, yeah.
We've seen this over many years of the Unilever journey. It's encoded into the company that's why good marketeers are very, very far and few in between, because they're actually able to articulate by observing consumers what the consumer is not able to articulate. Right? It's super duper tough to do it.
So so if you draw the parallel, the product development is done. You figure it out. You made 3 pointers. You know how to figure out your NPD. I also feel that in each of your case, you also have to launch the features with the product. And what I mean by the feature is you're creating product as a protein bar, and feature would be the different flavors of
Yeah.
the protein bar.
Yeah.
Right? There would be coconut. They could be cranberry, because I'm a consumer.
Yeah.
Peanut butter.
Yeah.
So in your case, the feature is a mango lassi or a Swiss chocolate. Now that also becomes very tricky because like just in the software world, there are power users of certain features,
Right.
and some audience will just shun that they don't
Right.
need the feature, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Now, for you to even build the feature, that's almost the same time and effort and the system what it takes to build the product,
Right.
right? Because the same
Process.
systematic process is going to
Yeah.
build the same product, right? How do you take the decision? Because, let's say in your case, for protein supplements, let's say we have 4-5 flavors.
Right.
Now there would be a sizable audience which say that I like mango lassi,
Mm.
but then someone else would say that I would like chocolate,
Right.
right? So how do you decide that what feature I want to build? What are the heuristics comes in your place so that the product is established? My what I stand for to give as a product is good, but how do I figure out which features I have to go back? In your case, flavors.
And I think that's where D2C comes into the picture, because that's been the biggest enabler for brands to experiment. At one point of time, it was virtually impossible for an FMCG/CPG brand to actually come out with a product and then experiment with with large batch sizes. So if you can kind of figure out your batch size issues with your manufacturer and come up with small batch sizes, or better still, if you can do your manufacturing in-house, D2C is an enabler where you can pick up your core and your power users and actually try out so many different features and have shortened feedback loops. Again, technology is an enabler there. And through this process, you can actually know your winners.
So what are you saying that, you established a very good, let's say, protein supplement. You said in your case it was the Keto Whey. Are you going to put out a survey to ask guys what flavor do you want once I have a solid product, or you figure out the flavor, take it out to the market, and then kind of reiterate to say, okay, this works, this doesn't work. So what doesn't work, I'll take off the shelf,
Correct.
and what works, I'll scale it.
Correct. I think it's the NPD team which will have to come up with those ideas, and you need to identify your power users, send out the product to them whenever such new features are out, gather the feedback, and then iterate back into what product is going to be a winner for tomorrow.
How much would that the conviction as an entrepreneur, when you have that, okay, vanilla to chalega hi, chocolate to chalega, but when it goes to the market, वो नहीं चला because the consumer said that I would want butterscotch.
For sure. I mean, वो गलतियाँ होती है. Like mentioned, right? Fruit. हमको लगा हमने दुनिया का best product बना दिया है वहाँ पे. But वो नहीं था. Probably we are too close to the sun to measure that, right? How we have reinvented is a lot of market access tools help you define consumer behavior in a particular field.
What are those tools?
So, like Amazon reading tool, right? You can possibly see as to the whey protein Amazon category of whey proteins on Amazon is a 1,000 crore category or 1,200 crore category. Out of that, 600 crores is dominated by whey protein. Okay, out of that 600 crores, 400 crores is chocolate whey protein.
Okay.
And this is a factual number. So 70% of whey protein consumed in India is chocolate whey protein.
And that's a data which Amazon provides,
Amazon or third-party marketplaces or your own D2C or allied tools which give you access to other D2C accounts.
which means you start with chocolate.
I would
Yeah.
say no-brainer start with chocolate.
Okay.
Because 70% of the market is wanting chocolate, that defines that the consumer behavior is inclined to chocolate.
Okay.
So certain assumptions, I guess, have to be
Assumptions have to be there. I mean, that is a no-brainer for sure. I'll give a very interesting example. There was a company which launched a regional flavor called Malai Kulfi. So if you see the strata of how it's performing so far, so chocolate comes first in the traditional setup, then it's coffee, and then it's all your strawberry, banana, butterscotch in the last 20%. Malai Kulfi, being a regional flavor, has picked up and probably displaced coffee also.
made. Yeah.
For that region.
For India as a specific region.
Okay.
And that has trickled down to international companies such as Optimum and Muscle Tech, being an American brand, release Malai Kulfi flavor. Because after one point of time, you can judge from the customer behavior and the data that is available around the internet as to what kind of regional or local flavors are appealing to the audience, specifically to India. I'm sure Optimum doesn't sell a Malai Kulfi in America.
Yeah.
I didn't know they sell it in India also.
They have, of course, it's the largest selling SKU for serious mass right now.
Wow.
Malai Kulfi is the largest
Wow,
selling
that's
SKU. I'm
news-
sure
that's news to me.
Neulife is launching Malai Kulfi in the
No,
next
no, no, no. We have,
No, that's
we
a
have the
cue.
mango lassi, right?
No, so I mean, so that's another cue now. Without going to Amazon, you know that Malai Kulfi could be another
hero product. We
flavor.
see such strong traction. So it had 7%, then 15%. It's about 22%. So I'm seeing such strong traction that, and most of these brands are hopping onto the bandwagon, right? The active brands are definitely seeing this as a growing market, and apart from chocolate, this is at the number 2 spot for India now. So you've somewhere displaced coffee, and now this metric of Malai Kulfi being the top favorite in India is growing. It may be a challenger to chocolate in the coming times as well. You
How
probably
much? How much? I mean, building upon this about the cultural nuances, right? Similarly, in the software world, I mean, all three of you guys are building for India as of now, right? I mean, you are selling for the Indian audience. Now, if in the software world you see there are software products which also get culturally packaged for a particular region. For example, Uber. Uber launched the COD, the paying cash ability in India. It was not in the US, right? Because paying through cash was not a user behavior there. Likewise, the tipping facility was launched in the US because that's culturally ingrained into the system. It is not here. But in your case, it's more consumption pattern.
Yeah.
So one thing which stands on is flavor.
Yeah.
Right. And I was kind of thinking that you have a coconut flavor.
Yeah.
Right now, coconut might be more favorable in the southern part of the country because coconut consumption is more, perhaps not as much in the northern part.
Yeah.
So in scenario like that, do you take a decision that what product and feature is mass adopted and therefore I should build more capacity for that, or let one go in one region because that will get me a loyalty or that audience because I'll stand out and building something unique for them?
I think that's when they were answering the flavor question. Strategically, according to me, the starting point is flavor going to be a point of parity or a point of difference for you? And that's a strategic question to answer. That, like, for example, in functional foods like whey protein, unless you get some freak hit like Malai Kulfi, etc., flavor should be a point of parity. I am not trying to win on flavor. I am going to try and win on functional parameters.
Like what's in the product?
Yeah. And I will give you great flavor, but the 70% of you want chocolate, 20% of you want coffee, I'll give you those two. That's how I would approach it. That I am not trying to win this battle on flavor. That's not the plank on which I'm winning, and hence I'm not going to spend R&D time, bandwidth, etc. trying to come up with the next best flavor in the world that no one has seen, which as it is a magic shot, right? Like a pass candy happens once in 10 years, which
Yeah,
just
the mirchi filled candy
yeah,
that we saw.
it
boomed. Yeah,
yeah. And food में ऐसा होता है. Food has so much, as I keep saying, food is magic, right? Like, so you will hit upon some taste, some flavor profile which you just couldn't have predicted, right? But it works a lot more in indulgent categories versus functional categories. Functional categories में that should not ideally be the approach of being the point of difference through flavor. In indulgent categories, and like we do chocolates also, of course flavor plays a massive role. And there, unlike the tech feature analogy, people are variety seeking. It's not as if मुझे ये feature चाहिए और ये नहीं चाहिए. मुझे आज ये चाहिए, कल वो चाहिए, परसों वो चाहिए because I've gotten bored of this. मेरे को कभी ये वाला खाना होता है. So we actually see we don't even have a long tail. Like on our protein bars, for example, chocolate is 35% of sales. The other 4 are exactly split equally 15%. We don't have a long tail because people actually buy a box of 5 and they want to go through it in go, right? So what we did find though in protein bars and in chocolate, the fact that we have a coffee variant, which is a lesser found variant in say dark chocolate mein coffee wala variant, is not very found. It becomes, and we have 5 or 6 in the portfolio of such across different categories, which are low sale, high repeat products. Big problem. Because the people who love them to death. But in terms of economies of scale, they're very bad. Right? You're producing one batch, half a batch every month. Right? We have this Casey roaster coffee variant, which like the 1,000 people who love it.
Yeah.
Like a limited edition, I guess.
Yeah, but the problem is if I discontinue it,
You're gonna
They're
lose
loyal
that
audience.
those
1,000.
people,
Yeah.
they are
They'll be
my
discounted.
like superpower users. They love the brand, so very very tough. Which again makes food super tough because this doesn't happen in personal care, for example. You don't want 10 flavors of under eye cream. There's just one under eye cream, right? But in food, because there's variety seeking and taste profiles are vastly different, this is a big problem. Honestly, I don't think we have a perfect answer to it. We started doing this that we now have a threshold sales after 1 year of existence, which if it doesn't cross, it becomes impossible for our supply chain to scale if we keep carrying this dead weight.
How do you define that threshold? Like what the number should be usually?
So number now sits at about 5 lakhs a month.
Okay. Of that particular
Of that SKU. Yeah, so if it can't do that much, but effectively we think of it as anything that falls under this SKU contributes less than 2% of total sales.
Okay.
It becomes a
Logistical
candidate to
Dead
be
weight.
looked at.
An interval is monthly sales.
Interval is monthly sales, but we judge only after 1 year of existence.
Okay.
Under 2%, all SKUs are a candidate to be looked at, and then you bring in all sorts of data, and there is again you can bring in nuance to it. That is it a high repeat product? If it's not a high repeat, shut it down. Like don't even think about it. But if it's a high repeat product, then let's look at gross margin profiles. That are we making any money out of it? Because if people love it, we should be able to price it up, right? So it might not sell a lot, but then it should make us some money, right? Which channels does it sell in? Can I shut it off in 2-3 channels? Because the complexity is not just SKUs; it is SKUs into channels, right? So if Amazon seems like a bad business on this SKU because it's a, I'm transporting air and Amazon is charging me money for it. Let's shut it down in Amazon. Let's make it a D2C exclusive. So there are, combinations of strategies that you can apply to different parts. But honestly, do we have a foolproof answer? We don't, because we've just shut down one variant of our muesli, which we internally love. We know consumers have been writing to us saying, "Ise mat band karo." There are people, we told people that abhi iska last 500 units are left, so please order. We know you ordered in the past. People who wrote in saying, "Can you give me a 10 kg batch if you're going to shut
Let me
this down?"
stock up.
etc.
Yeah.
Like emotionally, it really, it's like, how can I shut this down? But as we scale, I just can't carry an SKU.
We used to have that problem with a flavor called salted caramel. I used to personally love it.
Yeah.
But like Shashank said,
Didn't take off.
the economies of scale were just not there.
In
But
terms
people
of-
who used it just wanted it again and again.
In terms of Nutra, I feel specifically proteins, what taste can do is increase the LTV of your customer. If your first point of purchase is definitely going to be the feature of the product in terms of the protein percentage, the trust you've built around the brand. But if it is multiplied with good taste, or I would say the best tasting protein shake he's ever had, he's never going to leave you. So if we look back in the West, one company which really utilized this was BSN.
Synthasix.
You got it right. So Synthasix was a damn chocolate, put it in a blender and put milk, and as the taste that they were able to replicate onto the shake. And sir may know it that a person who's having Synthasix will never have anything else.
True.
Right?
True.
So I believe the first marker
I think
definitely
it's
should
very
be
important parameter. Taste.
very important,
I
especially in a
would
country like India. India में क्या है मेरा
No, but
हमेशा एक
just
philosophy
to
है.
just to like it's not a new flavor. They just hit chocolate out
correct.
of the
Best
park.
They
Best
exactly,
chocolate, yeah.
exactly.
Maybe the best
So,
chocolate,
but
yeah.
having said that, I think functional foods, especially protein shakes and bars, are pretty much becoming the staple of a power user or a core user now, and it's something which you're going to shop month in month out. And people who get into the category initially, they may be satisfied with their chocolate, but boredom will set in. So experimenting with
6
flavor is
months
a
away.
great retention strategy.
Yeah.
And I think it plays a huge role because taste matters. Taste matters. I've been a user of protein for 20 years, right? And taste matters, and I get bored of the same flavor again and again. Unless it's really out of the park, then it's different, but I like to keep on cycling. So one of the tools in our playbook has to be experimenting with flavors, because in function, there's only so much you can do.
The channel part, what you said, and I promise there will be two more such analogies I make to the software world, is distribution. So in software world, the distribution, whatever you build is an app store. Like gone are the days you could put something on the website and someone will come and download. Right? It's an app store. So a Google Play or a Play Store is an app store where it's a distribution center for a consumer to go and connect. Right? Likewise for you guys right now. So I think bearing, Pranav and Samit, where I doubt if someone would have an impulsive decision to buy a protein that मुझे शाम को खाना है protein
More
supplement,
informed
unless
decision.
they really ran out of the stock and they forgot and they have a heavy whatever workout session tomorrow, right? Which is our outlier case. But in your case, it could be a chocolate, which is
Impulse.
an impulse decision, right? And I think chocolate could only be perhaps an SKU in your, SKU category, which could qualify for impulse decision, or do you think protein bar comes close to that?
I think our 12-gram protein bar
Started to enter
is
that
being
category.
used in impulse cases also.
Okay.
That's the reason why we like that product has taken off, because a lot of people are using it as their dessert replacement. A lot of people are using it as their
So that's an
4
all.
p.m. snack.
Yeah, and maybe a very small cohort would be that if they're traveling suddenly and they could get through it,
Correct.
they want something, right? So the distribution center today is fairly varied,
Yeah.
right? You have because all three guys, you have D2Cs, you have your own destination where people come.
Quick commerce
then
coming
you have
in
your
now.
quick commerce because of the impulsive buy, and then you have the platform, the marketplaces of the world. Then you have the retail,
Yeah.
which is the big daddy, right? And all three of you guys have an aspiration to grow, right? At what point do you kind of step up that channel and the distribution to say that this makes no sense to me right now and this makes sense to me right now to choose? So for example, when do you decide, okay, it's time to double down, let's go retail, it's time right now to perhaps let's stick only to D2C because I want more feedback. Like I would assume a lot of people have told me that guys on Amazon, they don't get the touch point of the customer.
Yeah.
And as you're building as a brand, the touch point is very important. So at what point you guys figured out that what distribution is making sense, and how did you kind of kept adding on the new distribution? Anyone?
So we took a very conscious call that we'll start purely with D2C.
Which means you are not available anywhere else, only on the
For the
website.
first 1.5 years, we weren't available anywhere else apart from our website. The reason was very simple. Mission-led brand, we wanted you to discover our story before you tried our product. We didn't want you to try the product, as a packet on a shelf along with 20 other people. You come to my website, I'll tell you my story, I'll tell you why I exist, I'll tell you what I'm trying to do. In that context, order the product, then try it, right? Because context matters. If I give you Michelin star food sitting next to a gutter, you will not like it, right? So A and B, feedback loop on D2C is super fast. So if there is any iteration to be done, what are you liking, not liking, etc., you come to know really fast. And third thing which no one talks about is negative cash flow. You get money first in
Instant,
right?
yeah.
So initially that matters a lot, because any middleman in the business never pays you on
Time, for sure.
right? So we started D2C. After a year and a half, once D2C's growth started plateauing and started hitting a certain, steady curve, B, PMF was proven beyond a doubt, right? Repeat rates were through the roof, consumer feedback was amazing. These two things combined gave us the nudge that let's open the next level of distribution. And see, eventually, I think every brand should sell everywhere because consumers are buying stuff everywhere. Why should you make it difficult for them to buy you? Right? So it's only a decision of when do you go. Sorry, when do you go? To the next one.
So was that trigger point for you that growth was plateauing? You want to expand the market size?
Exactly.
Then the channel?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
It was not like a milestone that okay, 1.5 साल के बाद you want to go to marketplace or उसके बाद you
No,
want
no,
to
no.
go to retail?
We never had a time milestone. We had metrics milestone that we hit this revenue. We know that this is our repeat rate at scale, right? And till the time D2C is growing fast enough to fuel my ambitions, why should I dilute my margin
Sources of
profile, my experience, etc., to go elsewhere? I will go seek help of a middleman who is basically promising that I'll get you a lot more traffic. Only when I'm not able to do that job myself, right? So, and usme bhi there is a progression, right? So, you still get to tell some story and get some data on Amazon. That's zero in retail. Right? Retail is almost zero storytelling, almost zero data. So I saw it as a barter, saying first I will have full control, then I will have little less, then least, and that's how I will go down the chain. So we went on to marketplaces, had certain metrics of what's the uh, repeat rate, what's the revenue scale that we want to get to here. Plus, there was also the additional thing of in the top 3-4 cities where we will open retail whenever we open it, we want a certain size of business to be happening there so that we can have some standing to go and talk to a distributor there and tell them, listen, in Delhi we are already doing 1 crore worth of business through different channels. So there is proof of concept, right? Because one big learning when you were talking about what didn't work, actually for us, I was thinking was all of us believe that once online demand starts coming, offline demand will also come. These are two completely different
Geography.
things. And the biggest reason is there is a middleman sitting in there who's the retailer. And the retailer is not your consumer, right? Our brand is loved by 25 to 40-year-olds who are, people like us, who are in jobs, earning and, traveled abroad, etc. Retailers and distributors are not this TG, right? There are some 55, 60-year-old uncle who's been running a shop for 30 years, etc. He hasn't heard of my brand. I've never reached him, right? So I have no standing when मैं whole truth से आया हूँ, सब लोग मुझे कुछ नहीं जानता हो, right? So I have to show him, listen, I'm doing this much crore of business in your city through other channels. Hence I have the confidence. मैं आपको पिन कोड डेटा दिखा रहा हूँ कि आप जहाँ बैठे हो इस पिन कोड से मैं 10 लाख रुपए का D2C पे धंधा करता हूँ. That became the entry point of getting the confidence of trade, saying, okay, we'll put you in 10 stores and see what happens. And even there, it's a big hit and miss. It's not a easy journey at all, because another thing which is very true is online advertising in our country does not lead to offline offtake.
Conversion.
Unfortunately, offline offtake still correlates largely with broadcast media, so with print and TV, etc., which is exceptionally wasteful for small brands like us, right?
So do you then choose the offline positioning is on certain pin codes where that audience remains, or is it agnostic?
That's what I would wish to do. But the problem there is initially we'll start with modern trade. And apart from standalone stores, the modern trade chain has its own presence in certain places. So your ability to pick and choose is limited. You have the ability, but it's limited. But yes, to the extent possible, go to stores in pin codes where you have demand pockets sitting. All tying back to, as I said, we are not selling to a certain regional, ethnic sort of audience. We are selling to people who have disposable income. So those pin codes are actually quite, figure outable. Like it's the Indranagars and Kolabas and Bandras and Andheris of the world. Problem is, every new brand is trying to get into these pin codes only. Everyone is trying to go after these consumers only. And hence, these retailers have a massive top funnel of brands who come and talk to them every day. Every brand obviously pitches themselves as, I am the next best thing. Retailer are like, listen, everyone comes and tells me that same story. So you know what? First, give me 10 lakh rupees as listing fees.
Yeah, then I understand the
then I will. Then
No,
I
in
will
fact,
find
one
out.
thing I wanted to understand from you, me being a consumer, I've seen the life cycle from Instagram to the next wellness near me. Do you see new customer discovery at these touch points, or do you feel your older customers are choosing new forms of pickup now? For example, I used to order off D2C earlier,
Yeah.
being a customer, avid customer, strong customer. Then it moved to Amazon when you all came on Amazon. Easier purchase. My preference
For
on
sure.
shopping is Amazon. Post that I realized it's at the wellness next to my home.
Yeah.
So अब online channels बंद हो गए, सारा purchase wellness से होगा.
ये होगा.
So do you believe the retail ramp up has given you new customer acquisition, or is it the form of purchase for the older customer more convenient now?
Yeah, it's both.
It's both.
And for sure it's both. So I think all of our consumer journeys today are massively omni-channel, right? So the journey might be ad देखी गूगल पे या इंस्टा पे, भूल गया, नेक्स्ट डे वेलनेस गया, पैक देखा, उठाया, रख दिया, फिर किसी दिन रात को पार्टी में सम फ्रेंड मेंशन्ड इट, आई रिमेंबर्ड, ओ दैट ब्रांड एंड आई ऑर्डर्ड इट फ्रॉम इंस्टामार्ट. दैट माइट बी द जर्नी. और द एग्जैक्ट ऑपोजिट कि देखा दुकान में था, ऑर्डर वेबसाइट से करा, कुछ भी हो सकता है, राइट? व्हाट फॉर श्योर इज retailers, Amazon, Instamart, etc. attract a top funnel of audience that you and I are definitely not even being able to reach through our D2C
Correct.
efforts. So just probabilistically speaking, 100% some new people are discovering the brand,
And there are some old customers who also feel
and some old customers ka purchase is shifting from
traditional
from
to more
one
traditional.
channel to the other. Like I now buy my brand only on QCOM here, like because
Zepto.
my warehouse is in Bhiwandi.
Yeah.
Getting products from there, office मंगवाने में 2 दिन लगते हैं.
In fact, for my midnight
That's a very good
munchie-
hack. It's
My-
even cheaper for you to get it from
my
Coupon.
midnight munchie is a whole truth energy bar, the blue one. So that's
Yeah.
like a brownie, but when I'm cutting, I don't want to add that brownie calories on my diet. It's a pure play energy bar and very satiating. Zepto, or if I'm down, I'll just walk up to a wellness.
So I think consumers like us
Hmm.
are very smart. They want to adopt the path of least resistance to getting what they want.
And I think it's also which tier city you are in, because the amount of e-commerce adoption also makes a difference there. So in the tier 1, obviously e-commerce would be the winner. Now QSR would actually is giving e-commerce a run for its money. Amazon has recently started the pin code concept, wherein if anything is more than 300 kilometers away, they are not going to show it on your screens. So I think
Regional
e-commerce
variety.
adoption is one thing which will play a role into where the customer's journey starts. And then of course it's also category driven. For example, a bar being a 100 rupee price point is much easier for me to pick up from a modern trade or a kirana store versus a 5,000 rupee protein
Yeah,
dabba,
yeah,
because
yeah,
yeah, it's very
because then you're
which
going to
means you're
compare
not-
your price points quite closely,
Yeah.
and every 100 rupees saved is a big win,
Marker.
and especially if it's a month in month out staple.
Yeah,
for you.
Yeah.
So I guess so channel saturation, e-commerce adoption, and the category itself will drive, I think, these factors.
When I have such conversation, at the end of the day, my takeaway is the same, that it all boils down to the 4 P's of marketing, that you're present at the right place, at the right price, with the right promotion. Omni-channel is the more sustainable way for a mature brand to enhance its reach.
Yeah.
And that, of course, translates to larger sales coming in, because he was, available at that particular place when the customer desired him to be there, right?
Yeah.
So I believe that is the groundwork one should be focusing on, is making sure that your 4 P's are at the end.
And it's also
In a
about the
correct
timing,
space.
because depending on what stage of the scaling journey you are in.
Definitely.
So nowadays, for example, they have a few metrics which they use. I'm not saying it's written in stone, but let's say 50 to 100 crore is typically what a brand is expected to reach at a D2C/marketplace level before you can even think of going omni. The second thing is that since we are edible food, we have a shelf life. So it's even more risky for us to place it across
Yeah.
omni-channel and then have product coming
Pulling it back is a larger cost.
And I think
in fact.
I still have a 2 year on most of my products. I think you have 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, you have to be very, very
Yeah,
cautious
yeah,
about
very
where you're
Agile on
placing
it,
the
very
product,
agile on it.
as well as tech enablement in order to monitor offtake from that shelf. So if you can get the retailers onto your portal and actually have some form of dashboard, all those improvisations are required. And also now I think B2B, there are third party, I don't know which ones are really good at it, but there are a few, third party B2B enablers who will help place your product at
Multi-channels.
strategic pin codes, wherein they'll work with you into know where this product is going to sell.
Okay.
So that's another thing.
But
which
it is
is
also,
quite
I think, the nature of the product, like you rightly mentioned, putting up a protein box worth 4,000 bucks on a Zepto or a quick commerce channel is not feasible.
Yeah.
That is a more informed purchase. I will take that purchase at length when I've researched enough. I've compared the
Compared
pricing.
products enough.
Yeah.
Possibly, if not compared the pricing, I would just want to order it online. I'm not going to order it in a hurry. I possibly know that there are 5 days or 5 more scoops in my jar left. So it's time to place the order. So selection of the channel according to your product mix is also extremely important. Similarly, for us, I believe the fiber or the sugar replacer may be a more apt product for the quick commerce category, right?
Okay.
That will help us drive, visibility of the brand and also somewhere have a channel of acquiring new customers as well with the right kind of marketing spends aligned around it.
No, so guys, no, I mean, it was fun. I think the idea was to unpack and create these playbooks, try to understand what's working, what's not working, and perhaps create some checklists what potential entrepreneurs would know if they had to go and build. Consumers know a peek about what and why you did, and I'm sure investors will find a way. So if this could add to it, great. But as part of the wrap up, each one of you, quick, because we have 4 minutes to go. What is excitement and what is future looking? If a consumer is an ardent follower of what each of your brands are, what is that they should look forward in, I don't know, 6 months, 12 months?
Oh, super simple. Just open up your pantry, see whatever is there, and imagine a whole truth equivalent of it coming very, very soon. So you never have to worry about what you're feeding yourself and your kids.
Increase your pantry size then. Yes. Samit, what is the future looking for New Life?
Just helping consumers perform better across all dimensions. So we're looking at better sportsmen, better athletes, better performers. That's where we're at.
Perfect.
I think as a brand, we are in one of our best phases right now, partnering with a few like-minded companies around us, and I believe our customers have really been very generous in the support that we've received and the customer love around it. So I'm sure as a brand, we'll continue to excel in the formulations that we create with the agility and the comfort and ease of use, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more to see from the House of Trunativ. So yep, very excited for it.
All right, so there you saw the youngest, the eldest, and the middleman
The middle
who's
age.
trying to play the hybrid role. That was the story of the whole truth, New Life, and Trunativ. Smart entrepreneurs trying to get something healthy to you on your plate, on your fridge, on your pantry. You know how to reach out to them. Drop the links of each of their websites so that you can go and savor some products of theirs. That's the story. That's the conversation of this episode. I hope you liked it. If you have any feedback for me, please share it on YouTube if you are watching this, or LinkedIn, Twitter. If you want to reach out, please do so. Thank you very much. Once again, the podcast was brought to you by Rainmatter Health. If you are an interesting entrepreneur or innovator, want to build something, reach out to us. I'll see you next time again. Thank you.